Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 22 of the On Patrol podcast. We have a great episode in store for you with a lot of heavy hitters in the hobby. Truly going to be appreciative of what we talk about and wargaming clubs in North America and their successes and their lessons learned along the way. And we'll learn if we can even call them clubs or insurgencies, right? Or war bands. But without further ado, I'll turn it over here to my co-host to talk about our next segment.
Hey everybody, Wyndehurst Productions. So first, we like to start off every episode with H.A.W.K.s, caveats, and feedbacks. Just feedbacks from last episode, anything important like that. I don't really have any, there weren't a whole lot of feedback from last episode and anything that I think we need to address as far as caveats and feedbacks.
Sarissa's awesome. Buy the terrain.
Yeah. That was a really fun one to do. And one of our shorter episodes. Which this one most likely will not be. I don't have anything. Wyndehurst, Kentuckian, what do you got?
I just got done with that big tournament. Kind of recently just happened. So a great event. Great to kind of see people pick up historical models and use it inside kind of some 40K people moving over. And we're going to talk about that today on the podcast. But no big things from Sarissa. It was great to talk to Steve and to Mr. Cummings, and just it was an awesome time to get to talk inside business insider, I guess, in the hobby and how they manage and what's on the horizon for Sarissa Precision, which me and Wyndehurst both have a lot of good terrain from. So we're excited to get this panel and this discussion started with you guys. We have people from all over the United States, from sea to shining sea, north and south, all of it. And it's going to be a great time where we go through with our questions that we've lined out to see, what's difference in the hobby in different areas, different clubs. How do they come together? What are some of the lessons learned that these gentlemen have had over decades of building and working through clubs, and kind of what are key points that they're looking for in the future as they continue to develop and adapt. So again, we truly appreciate you listening, and we hope that you're getting some hobby time where you're able to do it. But please grab your shield, your spear, your musket, or your belt-fed machine gun and join us on this episode of On Patrol. Hello, listeners, viewers. We are here at another episode of On Patrol, episode 22. Getting a little feedback.
Yeah, we're good. It's
okay.
On Sean's end.
Got it. We muted you, Sean. But getting a little feedback. But again, episode 22, we're going to talk about historical wargaming in the United States. And I am here around me with the giants, the giants of the hobby in Estados Unidos. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the successes and failures of wargaming clubs. Because we all, again, as I've been told, even from a private to a young officer, is if you're not winning, you're learning, right? You're not losing, you're learning. And you're learning how to do things better. And some of these gentlemen are kind of new in historical wargaming clubs, are relatively new, and some of them have decades and multi-state experience on how to refine things and what's worked for them and what's going to work. And again, we're going to talk about those lessons learned. So I'm truly excited. And again, I'm the Fightin Kentuckian, and I'm here with
Wyndehurst Productions.
And we're just excited to get you started on this episode of On Patrol. So grab your shield, your spear, your musket, your rifle, or your belt-fed machine gun, and join us on this episode. So without further ado, I'll give a few of the introductions, some time here to all of the members of the panel. Again, a lot of them over for introductions. And I'll look for you, James, in Nashville, Tennessee, to kick us off with about a minute or two of your intro.
Sure. James Rogers, as you said, in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm part of the Track and Hull Club, aka the Tuesday Night Club, which tells you when we meet. I've been gaming 33 or 34 years. Don't know exactly what year I started miniature gaming. I'm also the president of H.A.W.K.s Mid-South and the director of NashCon, the Nashville Mid-South Convention.
Awesome. great convention as well. I highly, if you live in the area or close, or even if you're traveling from, NashCon's a definite spot. And I'll kick it over to you, Jason, and tell us where you're from again.
I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada, and I've been with this club, the Las Vegas Wargamers, since 2000 when I moved here. And we also work with H.A.W.K.s, PSW in Arizona and Nevada and California. And I'm a director at large for them.
Awesome. Happy to have you, Jason. Look forward to, with all the things to do in Las Vegas, Wargaming. I'm glad that's at the top of your heap. Awesome stuff. And I'll kick it over to Rob, one of our H.A.W.K.s brethrens from out in the Northeast there. Rob, take it away.
Okay, so I'm Rob Dean, representing the Hartford Area Weekly Kriegspielers, or H.A.W.K.s. Personally, I've been gaming miniatures since 1971, so I'm getting a little long in the tooth. I've been a member of the H.A.W.K.s now since 1994, since the almost since the club started. So awesome. As a 30-year club, I'd like to think that we've learned one or two things along the way, but I guess we'll see as this discussion goes on.
You guys do a lot of great stuff, Rob. I remember going to the cons early on and the giveaway armies and stuff, which we'll talk about. You guys do amazing things. And then moving over to you, sir, Charlie. I got to be, that's what I've been told to address you as now. So doing a lot of great things in the great state of Texas. Charlie.
Yes, Matt, thank you. So Charlie Torek here. I retired Army back in 2008, moved to San Antonio in 2009, became a member of the Lone Star Historical Miniatures Club San Antonio chapter. And right after that, after a couple years, I joined the board of directors and became the president in 2018. So been gaming since probably the mid-70s, turned 62 this year. So looking at potential retirement soon and taking on wargaming full time. But no, look forward to the discussion today.
Awesome. Another Army person. That's awesome, Charlie, and doing great things. Look at the Lone Star Historical if you haven't. They're an amazing site. I get a lot of inspiration from them. And now kicking it over to a spy who is among us that in this United States Wargaming Historical Club podcast with the two people that are currently in England. And one of them is my co-host, Benedict Arnold over there. And the other one is Martin. So Martin, take it away.
Hey, I'm Marty Ferris. I'm not normally a member of the Triangle Simulation Society, which is based out of the Triangle in North Carolina. I've been gaming for about 30 years. I've been involved with TSS for 20, which is when I moved down to the Triangle. And over the past 5 years, I've started doing the coordination and some of the organization of our annual con, which is Southern Front, which is in the fall.
Awesome, Marty. And again, just a reminder, water is the most powerful element on the planet. And this Wargaming Club hosts from one of the most powerful waterways in the United States. So Kevin, take it away with Big Muddy and introduce yourself.
Okay. As an introduction, my name is Kevin Fitzpatrick. I'm of the Big Muddy Historical Gaming Alliance, St. Louis. I've been involved in the tabletop miniatures since the mid-'70s. I've operated a first-generation game store from '83 to 2001 in St. Louis. Served with the Game Manufacturers Association as retail division chair. Became manager of the GAMA trade show and eventually executive director for the organization. In 1990, I was awarded the Merit of Service Award, which is GAMA's highest award for service to the industry. During that time, I also authored a column for Comics Retailer magazine on game store operations. I took a break after the closing of my store, and in the mid-'90s, Big Muddy was formed and has been supporting tabletop gaming in the area since that time. We currently hold 2 to 3 single game days per week, 2 monthly multi-game events, and we are pleased to partner with the St. Charles County Heritage Museum in October for a game day on the Battle of Cahokia, Illinois, from the American Revolution. And we will be out there this weekend doing an American Civil War game. In addition, we support DICON, which is a regional convention, and host 25 to 30 games there. paid membership in 24 was just under 60 members, and we have about that many additional participants. So that's my intro.
Awesome, Kevin, great stuff. And again, check out, they have a very active, I think, retiree game days and a good Facebook group if anybody is in that area. And they have some good stores up there as well. I'll kick it over to another. TSS infiltrated us, and they've got 2 members on this podcast. And one is because they both offer different perspectives. And so hearing their stories, I was kind of, I think it would be interesting to hear from both of them. So the next one is, you will see him very active on the TSS site. He has amazing models and games and stuff that he does, and he's not turning Japanese. I saw one of the latest projects. I think he was doing a lot of 20mm Japanese. But Bruce, take it away.
Yeah, so I came on board with TSS back in 06, and when I moved to Raleigh, and then we're not organized the way a traditional club is organized. If you want to do something, well, you have to take the lead. So I'm excited to talk about how we're not organized. But that being said, I organized my first con last year, the Spring Offensive. We're having it in Burlington, North Carolina. It's coming up at the end of April this year, so we're getting ready for that. And a lot of us are getting ready to go over to Williamsburg next week to the Mustard. So that's what's happening every year.
Awesome. Awesome, Bruce. Awesome stuff. Keep posting too, Bruce. I really am enjoying your stuff. And then, again, I think there is, when we started, somebody's got feedback, so be careful with your mic muting it if you could. But I think as we got into this podcast and we started looking at this type of topic and discussion, we noticed a lot of out west, a lot of holes out west that we thought. And Jason, I know that you're, really gunning away at it. I know Steve out there in California, but when I was talking to a few of my buddies, Travis, like California has some holes in the hobby. And just, I think, historical gaming clubs that either go under the radar, maybe they aren't active on social media as a lot, but one of those people out there who is a giant out west, who helps out with tournaments and historical events, and he's got a cookie crumb trail of World War II skirmish that he puts in front of the 40K tables to lead away people into bolt action, and his name is none other than Shawn. So Shawn, take it away if you're there.
He might have froze. Can you hear us, Shawn?
All right. Well, my intro for Shawn is he does a lot of stuff with, again, he talked to us a little bit before he come on there, and I've known Shawn for a while. He does a lot of stuff with the bolt action community and kind of getting people into historical wargaming from what would be competitive, sci-fi, and futuristic. And he's doing a lot of amazing work. Him and Jordan Weave are out there in Utah. So when Shawn jumps back on, we look forward to kind of hearing from him. Is that you, Shawn?
There you go.
Yeah, sorry about that.
All right, Shawn, I was a filler intro for you, but go ahead.
Well, thanks for that lovely introduction. My goodness. Hey, Jason, down in Las Vegas. Good to see you, my friend. Yeah, it was fun. When you guys reached out to me, I thought it was I'd like to kind of show off the West, the Intermountain West. And that's kind of what I do. I'm a Warlord Raider, so I'm kind of biased to Warlord, but that's just me. But I like to think my local club is called we have a store here and Gajo Games, and it's one of the premier stores here, quite frankly, in the West. It's the largest retailer of Battlefront product in the world, above their New Zealand home store. They're the only account here, and it's right here in Sandy, Utah, along with it's the largest seller of Warlord product west of the Mississippi. And so as I came to town 7 years ago from California to be here with grandkids, I just asked around and, hey, where do people play historicals? Because I get to reinvent myself. And somebody said Gajos. And I said, what? How do you spell that? So he had to spell it for me. And the next day I was there, showed up, and I'd never seen a store like this. I came from California, and I never did the hobby store thing. And so I walked into this Shangri-La, and I joined it was called the Saturday Night Skirmishers Club. but now it's called the Gajo Historical Society, and it has been around because of Gajo's. Gajo's been in business over 35 years, so he has the network of just historical gamers was all set. I joined the club and been in it ever since. So lots of things happening out here in the Intermountain West, and I'm just active doing my thing.
That's awesome, Shawn. Again, yeah, you might have to mute that mic, but for the feedback. But that's awesome. I do know you're a powerhouse out there. As far as California, let us know. Comment on this video. Comment on the stuff. Like, are you guys? I talked to Travis, who is one of like the premier tabletop CP is what he runs. They game Sharps Practice, Bolt Action, Chain of Command, whatever. And he is saying like there's not a lot of active. Yeah, San Diego maybe a little bit from Jason on there. But Steven is who we talked to a while when we did the competitive wargaming podcast, but not a lot of active members out there. Wow, I'm now looking at Bruce's and Charlie's hobby backgrounds, and I'm just scrolling. I'm jealous. I'm like, how many of those books are Ospreys on your shelf? So that's awesome. That's awesome. But we'll go ahead and again to be a good steward of your time because and Jason's got a cat walking behind him. That's cool. That's a tiger tank maybe. No, to be good stewards of your time and to dive into it. We wanted the audience and listeners to hear all about you. I think the median as far as experience on you guys is 30 plus years. So this is a time to kind of, look at the young Padawans out there thinking about getting into historical wargaming and building a club and how to do it and what lessons you kind of learned from early on. So I will kick it over to my co-host, Wyndehurst Productions, to ask the first question. Just pick somebody. And remember, everybody will get one question. And we'll be able to chime in and kind of talk and try to raise your hand or key up in the chat.
Thanks, Kentuckian. All right, so the first question, we did send this out to you guys, so if you could think about it, but we want to know, where does your club game at? From my experience, I've seen them at stores or at people's houses. Does it move around? What does it look like for your club in your location? And how do you feel like it is a good fit, or is it just what you're stuck with? So let's start with Charlie. Why don't you tell us down in Texas what you are doing?
Sure. So just a little bit about Lone Star Historical Miniatures. We're not a single club. We really encompass all the state of Texas. We have well over 1,700 members.
Wow.
And really in every community, city, we partner with about 70 game stores. And we really don't control what's going on in Texas. I'm part of the San Antonio group, so we game primarily in stores, but some of the groups are in homes and other locations. And really, it's everybody doing kind of their own thing where they're at. We got some established clubs in the cities. San Antonio is very gifted that we have like 20 different game stores in the city.
That's awesome.
And we move around. We don't focus on one exact game store, one game system, one time period. Kind of game everything all over the state. And I as the president of the club, kind of monitor what everyone's doing. We provide information out to the membership on what's going on where. I failed to mention on the intro, there's our big event of the year is Millennium Con, which we hold in Temple, Texas, which just happens to be the dead center of the state. And so we don't exclude anybody. We draw in everybody from around the state. We're not, as I said earlier, we really don't control what the clubs do. We just kind of share the information.
So
me personally, I game in a couple local stores here.
Okay.
In fact, next weekend, even though this is historical, next weekend we have a big Lord of the Rings Middle Earth tournament, and I'm participating in that. So, we get out, we show the colors. I'm wearing the Lone Star shirt. I wear that every time I go, and we have pamphlets that we hand out. And we just, you mentioned earlier bringing the 40K group in. The guys look and they're like, wow, I didn't know there was a historical, miniature game, and this is pretty cool. I play 40K, but this bolt action World War II thing is, I really like World War II, and we draw a lot of guys that way. So, and we don't discourage anybody if they're playing in a home, that's fine. And that's just kind of how we do it here at the Lone Star Historical Miniatures Club.
What would you say? A quick follow up to that, and then a kicking it out to the rest of the group. With Charlie, you having the ability to kind of see the whole state, like you said, you're at the, I would say, at the micro and the macro level. Like you have the benefit to see both. And so, what would you say is the average for? Texas is huge, right? Everything's bigger in Texas,
Right.
But are with the other historical groups that are popping out that kind of their banners raised when you guys are at war, and then they fall under Lone Star Historical. Do you think there are a lot of key stores that they kind of all at least call and circulate? San Antonio is a big city, but how does that?
It's interesting. So we've got, I said a membership of about 1,700. I've got emails for all those people, and I constantly get emails written to me directly that, hey, I'm here in Corpus Christi, and I just moved here. And I'm looking for gamers. And so in our contact list, I have emails, names, and where people are located. And so I can tie them in with somebody that is in their city, and a lot of success there. And some of the cities, like the big ones, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Austin, there are active gaming groups. So I will link them in with an organized group, and then they can join that membership and participate. And of course, always plugging our yearly convention in Temple, Texas, Millennium Con, and that's where we see a lot of guys from all over Texas that participate in our past Millennium Con. We just moved. This is our first year in Temple, and I think I signed up 80 people that were new members, paid members at that convention.
I would really, as a plug for our audience and listeners, and then I'm going to kick this question about where everybody games, so the other kind of people on this episode can generate their thoughts on it. But I would plug everybody to, maybe to Charlie's chagrin, to subscribe to that email, because it is how I think an email should be put out. It is packed full of information. It normally gives me a lot of hobby inspiration. And then he's like a matchmaker, or I probably shouldn't say Tinder, for war gamers in Texas. So link up with him, and he'll be able to point you in the right direction. To the rest of the group, any other big thoughts on gaming at stores or garages or in basements? Where do you find it for you in that country? You're part of the country.
Go ahead, Rob.
Rob.
You had your hand up first.
Yeah. Okay. So the H.A.W.K.s for the last 25 years or more have gamed at a series of church halls. Generally, we've had some member that was associated with a church and got us access to the facility. So in the written questions that you sent out in advance, the question is, do you have a rented space? And yes, more or less. Although in most cases we don't have an actual rental agreement. We currently have a standing arrangement with the church that we're in now, that we've got a large collection of folding tables that we let them use if we're not using them. And then we donate to them on a quarterly basis, but there isn't a signed agreement as such. And that church replaced one that we had used previously that went under. You don't think of churches as going out of business, but that one did. On top of that, we've got our annual convention, Barrage, which we run at the local community center, another space that we rent for that. So, but with the church hall, the other key to that is that we don't have storage there. So you pack your game in, you pack your game out.
Yeah. What is, I don't want you to talk financials, but as far as other people who are listening to this, and, whether you're gaming at stores, sometimes if you don't have a table fee, and then garages or basements are kind of good because you don't have a fee, but I assume it's something manageable, above or below a few $100, I assume, Rob, or?
Yeah, I mean, we're donating something in the hundreds per quarter to the church for this space.
That's good. That's good. And then I think James was up next. You had your hand raised, James Rogers.
Sure. Yep. The track and hole's been around for, like I said, around 30 years or so. Most of that time we gamed at a store. When COVID shut those stores down, we eventually moved into, we were fortunate that a member of the club has a office building that we're able to use space in. And interestingly, when we moved into that space, we actually increased And I think it went from showing that where you're gaming, whether it's a store or a building, where you're gaming tends to be important. You know, like I say, location. So that's where we're at now is in an office building.
Nobody will be as lucky as Track and Hold because they are in a 5 stories up in Nashville, so that's like pretty great. And then again, I think it's just donated, like you said, James. And I know that there's other businesses and stuff that go on there, but when the first night I came to meet you, James, and go to the club, I see the chain of command support elements plaque hanging on the wall, and I'm like, oh, okay, I like this place. It's pretty awesome. So you guys got lucky with that. And then Jason, I saw you had a hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say that we've been playing in stores. We try once a month because that way we're making sure that people see us and we're kind of out in the community. And then we have some subgroups that play in homes a lot more frequently.
And so Bruce Martin, being the friend that he is, immediately put you on the sacrifice altar, wrote a bunch of stuff about you in the chat. You can talk a lot about the Raleigh area and the stores that you guys game at there.
Bruce, you're muted still. Wait, Bruce, you're muted.
Muted.
We're getting feedback. There you go.
There you go. There, oh, no.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, every Thursday we game at Wake Forest, a place called Game Theory. They're very welcoming to us. A few years ago, we had a game day. I started the game day around here, and now it's up to once a month where we play at another place called Hangar 18.
Oh, yeah,
We're pretty
I've been there.
What's that?
Yeah, Hangar 18 is nice. Yeah, I've been there. I gamed some when I was at Seymour.
Yep, they're very accommodating, and so it's in private homes. Like the last 4 days I've played, 3 of them were at private homes, and 1 of them was at the game store. I think there's a lot that goes on around here in people's homes and stuff more throughout the course of the year.
Yeah, just that's where I'm the smelly kid. Maybe I just don't get the invite. No, I'm kidding. But it seems to be a good spread of you guys. I'm going to kick it to Kevin right now because they post, Kevin, some of the regular retiree game days I've seen you guys post up there and stuff. What's the spread look like? Stores versus home, a little bit of both, or?
Well, I think we concentrate on stores because we believe that it's gaming in the public space. A game in somebody's home, well, that's perfectly valid, is not something that we as a group can invite somebody to. It's the homeowner, the host, would invite somebody to. Now, certainly there is a lot of gaming going on in homes. I participate in some every week, but that is not a club activity, or a group activity, and it's not something we publicize. That's up to the individual. So we concentrate on gaming in the public space, which is, as you noted, our retirees game on Thursdays. We have another alternating Tuesday nights at a different shop, and then on the east side of the river, where there's Wednesday nights every week. So it's a matter of, again, if it's a group activity, it's a public space. If it's a private activity, maybe the same people, but that's not something the group really does anything with. So that's
a good theme to this, Kevin, and we're gonna, I think, peel back that about what's the benefits of either or, and then I want to kick it to the Intermountain, Shawn over there. What do you think versus stores versus homes versus other venues?
Well, an interesting point. It was interesting as far as how what was just said about the owner of the home can invite people as opposed to a group, and that's where. As we all, I think everybody's committed to building this historical community. The homes are just a factor, and I've just found that some of the private homes don't want to share their wonderful terrain that they have, and I'm talking. I know somebody who probably has $10,000 worth of terrain at their home, but they don't want it to leave. I get it.
His name's Sean.
Well, I have more than that, but we have the stores, and one thing about the Wasatch Front is that we have the most hobby stores and game stores per square feet in the area. We have two of the Warhammer stores, the corporate stores that build off of all these stores. And it's been estimated we have over 100 hobby stores. So from the Wasatch Front, that's Ogden, all the way down to, Cedar City. You could even go that far. And it's just every night. And the way I keep track is using Discord for these clubs. Every night there's a game. Every night. And these players, and I'm talking about hundreds of players, play every single game that you can possibly think of. And to keep them into the historical club, that's just part of, I guess, the frustration. Not frustration, not taking it personal, but I love historical wargaming. And I've never played a fantasy game before, so I don't have a clue why they play all those games. But that's one of my challenges.
There goes half the audience.
Yeah. It's just part of it. But we play at Gajo Games. Some of the guys play up at End Zone up in Ogden. Some of the guys play Mind Games. There's a Epic product that's the 13.5 millimeter Napoleonics or Civil War. There's a game going everywhere in every store, and it's you can't break into the card game stores. They just don't want no part of you because they don't have the time.
The profit's not there. Yeah. It's a really interesting to hear you all, and then so that we can keep moving in the questions. And so I'll kind of pose a new question, but it was a lot of conversation when we talked about Europe and England and how different countries game differently from us and why it was. And one of the things that came up was kind of distance. And so we have the benefit to have houses. And, if you're living in states like Charlie, like you just have 100 stores if you step out your foot. I've got like maybe one or two, and half of them's Magic here in an hour north of Nashville. But it's interesting to see like where we dissect and what works for us. One of the things that as I'm a red-blooded American is money means so much, right? It's our discretionary income in the hobby. And so this next question is kind of, do you have any fees associated with your club and any type of fundraiser events? Why or why not? And I feel I've seen a rise of this in some of I'm in the military and have the privilege to go and PCS through different states. And when I was in North Carolina, there was a store that were nameless that came up with a table fee. And I never see it going well, but I will say they had a good dynamic with it of if you paid for the table to play for X amount of hours, you just got it back in store credit. So it was kind of guaranteeing that you weren't hanging up the table. But as me, taxation, I want to get like my forefathers and paint war paint and throw the Boston T and I'm like, no, never, this hobby's free, or I want to buy a new regiment or a unit, so I'm not going to spend a few bucks in there. But I want to talk about fees a little bit with you guys and what you've seen, what's worked, what kind of helps. And I want to start with you now on this one, Kevin, because we talked a little bit about it in there. So, what do you have any fees associated with the club, fundraiser events, anything like that, monetize?
We have two membership levels, $10 and $30 annually. We don't hold any dedicated fundraisers. And our fees basically go to promote, are for promotions and banners like are behind me here that we use at conventions. It's all directed in that way. The treasury is, at one point we did a convention and then we got to a place where we had a free convention space. So we really don't need the money. Now, in response to the comment about table fees at game stores, we have mostly free here. There is one store that does charge using the same business model as you described. The guys there have another store within 10 minutes that is free, and they choose to play there. So that's fine, in regards to the comment about card stores, never had a problem.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah. So, card stores welcome us, even though all we're buying is maybe Coke, or a Pepsi, or a bag of chips. Never had a problem. There's something about the age group of historical gamers that we tend to add a little gravitas.
Nice word.
Yeah, well, the gray hair, suddenly you have a bunch of old gray-haired guys show up, and they're playing games, and it just adds a little class to the store, if nothing else, for lack of a better term. But anyway, that's
I like it. Well, Kevin, to that point, I know and I don't want to attribute that to a Wargaming Club. What happened, what I saw in one of the states I PCS there to try to protect that store is, it was just by the nature of where the club met that the game store that they gamed at kind of had a table fee. And so talking to the rest of you, anybody raise your hand, to come on the net about, fees and what are these things, and do you find them productive? Do you find them prohibitive? Bruce, go ahead. And Rob, unmute him if you can.
Yeah, you have to unmute him. Bruce, you have to mute yourself because I had to mute you because you're getting feedback.
Yeah, we'll mute you when you quit talking.
Okay, great. So
Martin paid me to mute you.
I was blown away when a couple years ago I was in England visiting, and they charge table fees like it's like a regular normal thing, and it's outrageous here in the States. So nobody charges a fee over here, but you do have to be organized enough to claim a table if you want to get into a gaming store, because there are a lot of card games going, and the gaming stores are fairly busy and stuff. So that's the only thing that we got to watch out for here.
Charlie, I think I saw your hand next.
Real quick. Yeah. So speaking from England's side, it really is like that. I mean, there's a store 30 minutes from here, and that is their business model. They don't sell anything. It is literally a wargaming event place. They provide tables and terrain. You can rent armies, but that's all. That is their business model, is come renting table space. So that is it's just the standard here for them. It is very different.
Does that work? I guess it works, or they wouldn't be in business, huh?
Well, another thing I noticed that's different from how, like our previous question, like where you all meet, the clubs here, most of them have a dedicated one place that the club meets for club meetings. And that's usually like a community center or something. And they have like a standard club fee that everyone has to pay. And then the individual club members might meet at someone's house, like just a couple here, but when the club meets, it's standard table fees if they're playing at stores, and then they have a standard fee for club members. So they're pretty, and I guess it works because people, it's the mecca of wargaming. So
so what are they buying when they buy into that? You have to rent the hall where you guys are staying. That would make sense to me then.
Yeah, so they rent the space. They're allowed. Most of them are allowed to store stuff there, so they'll have tables and some terrain. The one and this will kill you guys. The one closest to me, the community center has a bar, and they open the bar for them about halfway through the evening, and so there's a fairly inexpensive bar there in the gaming hall. So they get pretty spoiled.
So nobody ever wins, huh?
At least I can blame my dice. But I'll kick it over. I've seen another thing before I kick it to you, Charlie, is I've seen the wall locker fees, for gaming stores all around the U.S. where, hey, I'm going to keep my terrain there or something like that. But Charlie, what do you think about the finances and, a historical club?
No, just to piggyback on a couple of the comments. So one thing that's happened quite a bit is I've had stores and our convention space come back and say, hey, we like you guys because you're mature, you pick up after yourself, you don't cause any problems. So that's very positive, and the stores like to have us there. They've commented it to me on that a lot of times. For our club, we have a very minimal fee. $5 is the membership for a year. Everybody I talk to, I think I've had maybe 99% of people will say, yes, I can contribute $5 to help out the club. So we purposely keep the club price low because no one's going to say no to $5, I don't think. Not that we really need the money, because our big money maker is our convention, and that really finances us throughout the year. And one thing we do as a give back is we do a grant program. So if someone anywhere in Texas is going to run an event, a tournament, a game day, etc., they can just write the board of directors and ask for. We give out $100, $200, $500 grants, and then what we do is we recommend that take that money and purchase stuff in the store, the location where you're running the event, be it gift cards or product off the shelf. That way you're giving back to the store that you're running the event. So we've really had no problems with stores saying no, and the whole table fee is something I have not seen.
Rob, up there in the H.A.W.K.s, what you have your hand up as well. Thoughts?
Yeah. So we, unlike the Lone Star, we're just one local club, and we do run our convention barrage in September, and that gives us enough money to pay off the donations that we make to the church. So and to have the seed money for the next convention. So there's no need to collect any money directly from the members, and hasn't been for I'm going to say decades at this point. Back in the early days, when Barrage was small and new, it didn't pay for the money that we paid to that church, and we just handled that by a pass the hat periodically. So we don't have mailings that go out on paper or anything like that would require us to collect any money. So we don't. But so it's all funded by our convention at this point.
That's awesome. The event funds basically your rentals and your kind of regular play. So that's awesome. Jason, I see your hand up second after Rob. Thoughts on this?
Yeah, like for our club, it's a little bit kind of gatekeepy, where people, like you said, I'm looking at my amendment rights and I'm not paying to pay for something I've already bought a bunch of figures for. So that's kind of one challenge that we've had. And then depending on the store, sometimes it's like if you're regularly playing at the store every week, there's no fee for tables. And so that's discouraging to our club to go there, for example. Mm-hmm. But then a lot of them are kind of like you can get some snacks and drinks or some product or whatever. But mostly it's just kind of gatekeeping. We have a couple of stores, one store in particular right now that we're playing at where we can get in for free. And they do provide terrain. And people support the store as much as they can. Yeah, it's a difficult. And Sean, I'm about to kick it over to you next, and then James. But it's difficult because again, we game at these stores, and you got to be good stewards of them. Normally, if you spend a couple of bucks or something like that, you'll keep the avenue open. And even I've had stores in the past where I've had to walk them through, like, here's a historical company that I'd like to order from. I won't have to pay shipping. Can I get it through you? Can you just start to, and I've had stores even work that way. So anything kind of, all of you, one of the tenets here is, I think the fees are low because we're red-blooded Americans, they're minimal. And then Kevin, even, a $30 fee is not too much to shake a stick at. And it helps, I think, the club go a long way up there. But Sean, what about you out in the West Coast?
Well, I was just thinking about my first day that I walk into the Saturday night skirmishers at Gajo Games, and I said, "Are there any dues? Do we pay for the tables? Blah blah blah." And the two guys looked at me, and our dues are paint and build armies. So that's the only dues you got. And some of these guys have some of the largest collections here in the Utah, certainly. So that's our dues. We just let the stores do what they want to do. I don't know of one pay for a table here in Utah.
What about James in Nashville? King George, death upon him. Do you have dues? What do you have?
No dues. And and like we said earlier, we're fortunate that a member of the club allows us to use the space that he has at their building.
A high rise in Nashville. Yeah, that's pretty.
Yeah,
that's pretty fun.
You have a multi-story business office that's available to you. If that were not there, we would have the option. There are a few stores in the area that have always opened their doors to us. I don't know that we would have. I don't know that we would go back, mainly because of the space. I don't think they would have adequate space for us now. And then we would possibly look at having to rent something and put money together. I think, like I said earlier, I think where we are in Nashville has become more important than whether we're in a store or not. So I think we would try and maintain the area that we're in more than we would necessarily go back to a store.
No, that's a great point. That's a great
And
point.
there were no fees, when we were at the store. So it was,
That seems to be a trend for everybody here. I mean, the fees are nominal, and the historical groups that are using fees, you can tell they're putting them to use. Whether it be Kevin and your sick banner behind you, Kevin, that banner looks sick. You're gonna have to send me the store that. Or Charlie, I know you're doing a bunch of thing in Lone Star where it's helping it out, and the donations and stuff, and you're giving it back to the community in other ways too to support gaming. So we do seem so diametrically opposed to Europe and England on this, where I don't know from what I've seen. Like, I understand theoretically, like the War Games Holiday Center, where you go to play like Waterloo and they provide everything, or you go and you have a weekend of gaming that you pay this money for. But it never made sense to me on some of the stuff they do with as many game stores as they have. But hey, there's no such thing as a free lunch, economic principles, and that's going to help drive wargaming business. So I got it, or at least the U.S. fees do not usually have terrain or storage for stuff, etc. Yeah, that's true, Jason. That's a good point. But I'll kick it back over to Rob for the next question.
Yeah. So keep in mind, kind of part of the reason we're interviewing you all is for this podcast is to get the word out there to other people if they want to start clubs locally where they at, just kind of good ideas. So we probably should have asked this more towards the beginning, but just curious the size of your all's clubs, because I know, over there in Texas, it's kind of some of these clubs are bigger umbrellas. So if your club is one of those kind of bigger umbrella groups that spread out, then kind of how big are the individual groups on average that meet? That way we give a little context to our listeners about the size of your clubs and, why we picked you all, because your clubs are usually, they're so successful in getting it done. And Marty, do you know how big your club is? We haven't heard.
Ask the guy from England. Yeah.
Since you were last there.
Yeah, exactly. Bruce could have tanked it, but there's probably about 40 or 50 regular gamers in that Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill area. It's grown, and people, as they kind of move back and forth, they stay affiliated with the group, and so there's another 5 or 6 guys out in Winston-Salem who don't view it as a bad day to come to Durham. They might to the far side of Raleigh, and then there's Wilmington. So, when we run our cons, we get about 100, 110 folks on the regular kind of coming. So that's kind of the size of the group. If you look at, maybe Charles can talk about this, you start having a kind of a state ecosystem, but it's folks who are willing to drive a couple hours to play a game and stuff.
Nice. James? Yeah, your hand up.
Yes. We don't.
I think Bruce is trying to chime in there. If you unmute it, Bruce.
Yeah, just staying with the Raleigh thing for just a second. As far as our club, we're technically really not a club. We don't have a president, a vice president, a treasurer. We're just organized around 1 or 2 cons now in the fall and in the spring. And if somebody wants to do something, the reason why me and Marty are on here is because nobody's in charge. So we're like, okay, let's try. We'll both do it. And if they kick us off, they kick us off, whatever.
You guys are an insurgency. You're not a club. You're an insurgency.
And so this keeps away a lot of ego involved in vertical organizations and stuff. We had a guy move in a couple of years ago briefly, and he was like, hey, we ought to put together a news mag. And basically everyone's response was, hey, go ahead and do that, because if you want to do something like that, you go for it, buddy. The rest of us are got our own thing going. So,
No, and it's weird to see. That's why we wanted to talk about this, because organizations, we do have vertical and we have kind of lateral development, and we still have success based on either the area or the influence and how you can affect it, in your state, your locality, or wherever you're at. I'll kick it back to James when Bruce was chiming in there. James, go ahead.
Yeah, but we're Track and Hold is very similar to what Bruce was saying. We're not, I guess, an official club, even though we've been around using that name for a while. But yeah, there's no president, there's no vice president, there's no elections, nothing like that. And in fact, when looking at the question of how many members do we have, well, when you're not official, and nobody's joining per se. So one thing we do, we use Discord as a communication device, which we've started, since COVID. And the difference between it and, say, our Facebook group that we also have is the Facebook group is out there for the public. Discord is generally an invitation only for people who are coming, on Tuesday nights to game. So gauging by who is on our Discord, we have roughly 43 members. We'll average at least 12 to 15 gamers per week on a Tuesday night. But we've had as many as 24 on a night, so that's Track and Hold.
Yeah, I've been there some nights when you're pretty pumping. Shawn, I don't know if you or Jason were next on the hand raise. Shawn, go ahead.
I'll speak. Yeah, no. As far as the Gajo Historical Society, there's probably a constant up to 8 players. 6 to 8 kind of show up. We meet on the first Monday of every month, so we have a special room downstairs at Gajo Games that we have it. But there's probably 15 to 20 members. There was probably as big as 80 years ago, but people just fell off because from aging to just because life changed, they left the area. So it's an intimate club because we have the first Mondays. But we use, for the Gajo Historical Society, we use Facebook. But of course, not all the guys are on Facebook. So that's kind of our membership.
No, and again, there's a theme here where it's kind of fluid with historicals, which is, we expect that in what we've seen. Jason, I'm going to kick it over to you because I think you have a different kind of view on this as well.
Oh, yeah. As far as our group, we have about 300 people in our Facebook group, but 100 of them are people that just come into town from out of the country or other states, and they're just looking at what we're doing, and if there's a game that's convenient for them, they'll show up for it. But then of the other 200 people, probably 100 are lurkers, and then the last group, we have about 50 active people that play different games. Whatever's put on, they might show up for one thing or another, but it's never all 50 of them for one thing.
No, yeah, you got the transient nature, I think, of Las Vegas adds to the kind of dynamic there of a historical gaming group. Rob, I see your hand. I'll kick it over to you.
Right. Well, the question of we're another one of these insurgencies. I'm for better or for worse, and always have been. The most official count that one would have is that for our mailing list, which is somewhere in the low 40s. But practically speaking, there's probably a core group of 20-ish, and it shifts around once in a while, of whom at least half will show up on any random club Friday night. So the question of how you know that you're a member if you own one of the shirts, which I'm not wearing today, unfortunately.
I'm gonna have to buy one, Rob. You guys have been such a tenet of Historicon and stuff, and all the things that the H.A.W.K.s do. So that's awesome. It is fluid. Kevin, what are your thoughts on this as well with the membership and defining it and even?
Membership is fluid. Again, our numbers we came in just under 60 last year in paid members. And those are people that have put $10 in the till to help, again, with promotional items and such, and made a financial commitment to the group. We have probably, again, that number again as far as membership goes. As far as how we communicate, though, it's we use Facebook and anything else to drive people to the website. And from the website, we drive them to what we call butts and chairs. So,
great.
So that is in fact, I just had a marketing meeting this week with our communications guy and said that is how we move, is Facebook, whatever social media we use, our email newsletter, everything is to get them to the website, and from the website to the butts and chairs. So,
no, that's a good transition too about the fluidity of members. When you said marketing guy, that you sent it to your marketing guy, I see Bruce go, "What? They got a marketing guy?" I'm kidding, Bruce. I'm kidding. But no, it's a great. I think it is a good dynamic with us in North America, where it is very fluid, and you get that core group, and then you get somebody to latch on. Right? None of us have done this, just like wargaming companies, to go roll in pits of money. It's a hobby. It's a passion, and so it's spreading kind of that to your community and your group. And then again, life happens, right? We all know that in no matter whatever you're participating in, like, hey, I've gotten ill, I've got some family stuff, I've got to take a few weeks off, do whatever off. And, your buddy will always be there to laugh at you and roll ones when you're finally able to come back to the gaming table. But to transition into...
Real quick, I was curious what Charlie had to say, because I know theirs is such a large umbrella.
Oh, I'm sorry, Charlie.
No, so truth in advertising. Spent 25 years in the Army as a signal officer, which is communications, and that's really my passion, was to communicate. And when I joined the club, I'm getting some feedback here.
I'll fix it. There you go.
Okay. No, so when I joined the club, the board of directors, I became the communications officer, and really went and started communicating with the members. It was, like the other clubs, are very fluid, not real organized, and membership jumped real fast. I mean, we went from about 35 members to, 10 years later, we're at 1,700 plus, and growing really every month. And I think it's important to communicate with, if you want to have an organized club, to communicate with your members, reach out to them. We use all the major platforms: Facebook, Discord. We have a website. Also send out a newsletter every month to just kind of let everybody know, hey, here's what's going on in Texas. And many times I have gotten frustrated with the newsletter because it's a lot of work. I do that myself. But about the time I'm going to quit, I start getting emails from guys saying, hey, I love the newsletter. Thanks for letting me know that there's an event in Houston this weekend. And so I keep with it. But again, you really, from my perspective, you have to communicate with your membership. Don't let the website, don't let the Facebook get dry. Luckily, we have a lot of members that participate and post things. And I know we may talk about this a little bit later, but the key element to an organized club, I think, is your information technology guy, the guy that runs your sites. And I'm kind of old school. I'm not real up on that, but we'll get to that discussion a little bit later.
No, that's a great point, Charlie. And you with your background in communications, it's only poignant there that you were kind of last on the microphone. It is interesting to, wherever it starts, whatever anybody who's on this episode right now, your origin story as 2 to 3 guys that rope in another 2 to 3 people, and then the communication is so critical about, hey, here's where we're going to game at, here's what we're going to do. I'll say one of the other things that'll transition us into our next question is consistency. And I've seen it with the Triangle in North Carolina, and I've seen it again with your guys' conventions. And then when you are posting on TSS and the people are up there saying, hey, we're doing game days, whatever it is. And then James, I've seen it with your club at Track and Hole, and from all of your sites, I've really seen this. But, does your close club host game days and kind of regular events? And even if, whatever's going on in the world, I've seen clubs that normally have the regular scheduled programming as somewhere in the backdrop do pretty well, which doesn't mean to say that I haven't seen, sporadic clubs do poorly, but consistency for building new players and getting somebody out there seems to be a good kind of edge into it. So we'll ask that question. I'll turn it over right now to Shawn to kind of start this. On do you host regular game days or events that people kind of know about?
That was for you, Shawn. I think he cut out for a second right when you were asking him. Other than the first Monday.
Is that to me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, guys. I keep popping in and out. Didn't hear the question. Sorry.
Just regular game days. Because you mentioned you do the first Mondays. Yeah. Is that the only regular game day your club does?
Yeah, it's the first Monday of the month. Everybody kind of plans around that. I do another day of event on the third Saturdays of every month where I just promote the Warlord games. Okay. And I have the downstairs, and on there's Battlefront days on that same day. There's of course Warhammer and 30K and all those guys. They kind of have their days that they book in. So Gajo Games is very busy. The other stores, some of them are on weeknights, but mostly we do Saturdays, if not 95% of the days.
So at least once a month seems like what you're hooking on there with some little add-ons that you personally kind of drive. James, I see your hand raised. What's the regular gaming look like at your club?
Like so we game every Tuesday night. We have since the club started 30 plus years ago. The number of players over the years have varied up and down. I think in the last few years that we've seen a lot of growth. I think the one thing that helps the most in having, on a weekly basis, a good showing is getting the word out as to what's coming up that next week. If it's hanging out in the air that, it's known that it's Tuesday, we're going to game. The question is, what are we going to do? And the better we are at putting stuff on Facebook and Discord, letting people know a week or so in advance, the better the turnout is. Something I've been, encouraging everyone to do, but when you have a less organized organization or group, a little tougher to do. But yeah, something we're working on it. It's getting better at putting out there in the future, what games are going to be played on what weeks.
No, that's perfect. 4 times a month. Can anybody beat 4 times? Rob, I see your hand raised. What's kind of the regular game days for the Hawks? I think you're muted, Rob.
Yes, so I am.
Gotcha.
We've been on a every 2-week schedule since the beginning. A long time ago, the decision was made, and everybody kind of agreed that every 2 weeks made it special enough that you would remember to go, and regular enough that you would remember when it was. So we felt that monthly meetings, you might forget the meeting was coming up, and weekly meetings, you might go, well, if I miss it this week, it's okay. So we've found that the every 2 weeks is the sweet spot. So when I read that question originally, though, I was anticipating that we were talking about something other than regular club meetings, because we do nowadays, with the church that we have available to us, have a semi-invitational game day a couple of times a year. We'll just take over the hall for a Saturday and have 6 or 8 games in 2 blocks on there.
Bigger games and stuff.
Things that take longer to set up. Plus, of course, Barrage, our convention.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. The idea that you guys are staying consistent with it, and then that helps kind of the fluid club members come in and out. Kevin, I see your hand raised. You're one of the next ones here, and then we'll move over to Bruce.
And going back to what Charlie said about communication, that is the key. And because hold the event or don't hold the event, if nobody knows about it, it's kind of useless. But it's getting back to the media question. We put 14 games on the table every month.
Wow.
And as I stated earlier, it's 2 to 3 single game days per week plus 2 multi-game events, and those are 3 games each. So, and those are planned out ahead. and they are advertised ahead to the group. And when we send out through Facebook and again through the website and through the email blasts that we send out. So
no, and Kevin, I'll give you a quick tip of the cap. I love, I would say like travel gaming. In my time, I've always linked up with people in different parts of the world. Rob knows this. I played with somebody in the Netherlands last fall, and I just like kind of getting on there. Kevin, when I was taking my daughters to the St. Louis zoo, I knew when you were gaming because it was posted online. I stopped by and I saw you guys were doing like 20 millimeter or 15 millimeter bolt action and some like campaign game. And so I just swung in there. I only had 5 minutes and I had kids with me, so I wasn't going to stay. It was going to go bad. It was going to go very poorly if I did. But it was a great time, and I just, you know, that's a good credit to that. And it goes back to Charlie's kind of key point there is communication. Bruce, I'm kicking it over to you. I saw your hand up.
Yeah, so our game days are characterized. We usually have minimum 4 games for the game day. And then our group, we meet every Thursday night. The game day is once a month, and then the Thursday night live group meet once a week, nominally. Some weeks we just don't make it. But those Thursday night games are characterized as minimal, decent terrain, but minimal terrain. We start at 5:30. It's a 2-hour gig, and then we're wrapping up 7:38. It's a school night, right? And then of course we have our 2 annual cons and stuff. The important thing, in my viewpoint, is not so many how many people show up at each event, is that you just keep the energy going. Keep the energy going. Guys see that, hey, somebody's doing something somewhere, and that little engine will keep everybody's motor running. You know what I mean? So that's why it's important to us.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. Any other thoughts? Kick it around to the group for anything else on, you know, how often you run things
I have a follow-up question for you all. So when I was talking briefly before we started recording with a couple of you all. So when I was here the first time, the club I played with gamed, I think they did twice a month, but it was always on I think it was a Sunday. And when I got back over here, all the clubs in this area only their game days are on weekdays, which for me, in active duty, that's very hard. I do shift work, so it was really hard for me to game with them. And I asked them, I was like, why is it this way? And the answer I got from one of them, it was like, listen, and most of the clubs here game every week. So they're like every Tuesday, and another club like every Wednesday. And like, I would rather give up every Tuesday or every other Tuesday night, but not every other Saturday or every Saturday. So I'm just curious, your all's kind of thoughts, if you've had people bring that up to you, why a weekday versus a weekend, kind of when we're talking about these game days. Marty, I think I saw your hand up first.
Cool. Yeah. I'm maybe unlike some of these guys, and maybe more like you or like Matt just said. I've got a family. If I'm going out to Raleigh itself, if it's rush hour, it's probably an hour worth of commute, and so those weeknights are really hard and precious in some ways. So Saturday can often be better for us. But there's folks in our group who are religious, and on Sundays that is their time to go to mass and spend family time and things like that. So I think it's nice to be able to have, like Bruce says, he's got a Thursday night. There's these longer Saturdays that people try to do. And then there's always people, offering their houses or throwing games. There's a bunch of retirees. Somebody runs games pretty regularly on Tuesday at lunchtime type things. So there's that mix, but it does really pay to kind of have options when you have such different life schedules, I think.
Yeah, it's good. And Bruce, do you want to follow up?
Yeah. My whole priority really is you just gotta be like a gorilla and game where you can and when you can and get it on a calendar. I find that if you can get it on a calendar as early as possible, a little bit of hippie talk here, but the universe finds a way of opening that up for you a little bit, even with the family. I claimed that day already. That's my day, so yeah, that's it.
Jason, you had your hand up.
Yeah, we definitely schedule like once a month to kind of tell people this is what we're doing. And then we recently started doing, one of my friends at his house, he does like Tuesdays, and I've done Thursdays at the store. Kind of a weird time, like 3:30 to 6:30, just because that's when I'm done teaching. And we have a lot of people that are retired, so we're trying to reach out to different groups to keep them involved.
Okay.
No, that's great. I think Kevin's got his hand up.
No, I think I should have my hand down. I don't know.
Yeah, so it sounds like
make that go away.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's most of you all either you have maybe a regular day, but your club itself or the members of your collective, as some of you guys are more like, find time to game, other times to accommodate people. So it's not too much of an issue, it seems like, for you all, which is
this
good.
I want to interject a follow up because I think this is a great place for it, and for the kind of panel here throughout the United States. I think question 9 feeds into this because it's just like Bruce said, it's just like James said, and Charlie, it's just, I mean, I see this a lot, you know, the overtasked, the people that get burnout in the hobby. And James, I don't know how you do it because I've visually seen it for the last 3 years here, the running everything. How are your games chosen for kind of these game days or events? You know, GM volunteers, rotation of GMs, randoms, somebody always brings a game, right? It's packed in the box. And so from the all levels of this and kind of posing it to the group, we've gotten through a lot of the people. I'll kick it over to Charlie to probably, this will be focused, I guess, in the San Antonio and kind of micro level of the game days. What do you guys have a rotation, a batting order? Or do you just, there's some people that have the passion, the spark, like what I see Bruce having in Triangle, where you're going to ignite the fire, or a little bit of both?
Right. So I'd say a little bit of both. So the group I game with, we're every other Friday. But I'm very fortunate that truly, if I wanted to play a war game, I could play a war game every day here in San Antonio. There's something going on at a store or one of the stores every single day.
Charlie, quit talking. You're gonna make me put it on my preference list.
So when I retire
on my preference list, Charlie.
When I retire in 4 years, that's going to be my hobby. But no, so we, you know, it's really up to the game master. We've jumped into Valor and Fortitude, the Napoleonic game recently, so we've been playing a lot of that. But you know, our last Friday game day, we played Saga. Introduced a couple guys to Saga and got them hooked. In fact, one guy got on his phone and ordered the rules as we were playing because he liked it so much. So we try to, you know, variety. I mentioned earlier that, you know, next Saturday I'm playing Lord of the Rings, you know, non-historical. And I'll just interject that even though we are the Lone Star Historical Miniatures Club, our big convention is probably, I would say, 40% not historical gaming. Role play, sci-fi, fantasy, etc.
Well, that's Charlie. That's what we like to call an L-shaped ambush that you're bringing into.
Right, and as I mentioned, you know, a lot of the what I see a lot of the 40K guys, when they see bolt action, which is somewhat similar, in their passion for World War II, we've converted a lot of 40K players into bolt action and playing historical games, and then we just go from there. Exactly. But no, so a lot of variety of games, allow the GMs to kind of show up and bring their stuff and their toys. And I will point out that it doesn't matter how poorly painted the figures are, what condition they're in. I'm always praising the game master that this is the greatest thing ever, and thanks for putting on the game.
Awesome. Bruce, on the guerrilla front, out there with the Viet Cong and hosting game days, what does that look like? And you are muted, I can see.
And you got a hand up.
So it's volunteers with the GMs. We usually don't have a hard time filling those slots with at least 1 or 2 games. Our turnout is pretty good there. It kind of depends on the game. But we usually have at least 2 games and sometimes a 3rd game in the afternoon and stuff. So that's a once a month gig that we've got going, and it's scheduled 6 months out. So everybody knows what's coming up. We try to miss the cons and stuff, so there's no interference there. That's kind of how we got it set up.
Oh, great point. I see Martin's hand as a follow-up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that, one of the things, if you're people on this podcast are listening and trying to start up a new group, you cannot be shy and let your feelings get hurt if someone isn't able to do a game that month. You've got to be able to yank and twist arms and things like that to get these going. And usually everybody appreciates. Usually there's good sports or somebody who can knock a game in for it. But be active and engaged.
Yeah.
Rob at the Hawks, I saw your hand.
Yes. Well, so it is always by volunteers. And in 30 years, we keep having enough people volunteer to run the games. The one thing that we have discovered is a little unusual about the Hawks is that nearly everybody in the club has something that they could bring out and be a 6-player game for a game night or for a club night. So, and we do put on, as you mentioned, our Historicon presence has been large over the years. So there's always a line of people that want time to test their scenario before the convention. So someday when we run out of energy, that may change. But at the moment, there's been plenty of volunteers historically, so we haven't needed to twist any arms.
No, that's a good point. Play testing.
Sean, how are they doing it over there? You're muted. You're muted real quick, Sean. Sean, you're muted.
Most common phrase in this episode, you're muted.
There you go. Oh, nope. You got it, and then you undid it.
There I am. Sorry about that.
That's right.
I thought that when you moved. No
hey,
problem.
Charlie said communication was a key point, Sean. You got to step that. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I've been a salesman my whole life before I retired, so I don't know how to communicate. Is the way we do it, it's the only democratic part of the system is that at least the Gajo the Historical Society, we do 3-month campaigns. We just finished up a Napoleonic 28 millimeter game. We used the bolt action rules. Now we're doing AWI as far as American War of Independence. So we vote on it as members. So people hear about it. We tell them we invite guests, but for a guest to come, they have to kind of be approved by the rest of the group. So that's how we get people into it. So that's how we do 3-month campaigns and we vote on it.
Nice.
Perfect. Jason.
We have an annual membership meeting, and of whoever wants to show up, because we don't charge dues, and people kind of say what they'd like to play, and we kind of say we're going to play this game once a quarter and then that game once a quarter. And so instead of grouping it all together like my dad's group does in New Mexico, we kind of spread out that game so that they're not just going, oh, well, we played, Colonials for 3 months and we're not going to do it again until next year. So let's put it all away and forget about it. We kind of stretch it out that way.
Just because I know every time I've been to the Track and Hole, I'm kicking this to James now. But I know no matter what's going on in the world, the election's crazy, COVID, Ukraine's being invaded. But I know James Rogers has Chain of Command pulled up, ready to go on a Tuesday night in Nashville. I could guarantee it. James, what do you think about this? Do you have some GMs that tap in there from now and then? But what are your thoughts about this? With how is it spread? Rotation?
It's not. It's volunteer. Like I said, I've been trying to encourage people, to plan ahead. A lot of back and forth on Discord. Currently, and actually, I haven't. The last few months for me have been a little crazy personally, and I haven't run much Chain of Command. I did run O Group last week. That went really well. But we've got currently right now we have a Roman campaign going on. It's 2 or 3 weeks in that one of our groups started.
Scott Anderson, big shout out to Scott Anderson. I'm so bummed that I'm going to be in the field for a month but that thing looks awesome. That thing looks awesome.
Yeah, it's been. I played in. Let's see, they did their second game last week. I played in the week before. I played in a game. But yeah, it's been great, and generating people to come in. But yeah, it's volunteer, and like I said, I'm trying to encourage to schedule these things out on a more routine kind of basis. Prior to COVID, our group was a bit smaller. It was easier then. We could all sit down at the end of a night and go, okay, next week you run a game, next week I run a game, and we could plan out a month ahead of time. But like I said, we're 15 players. That's usually at least 2 games a week.
Yeah.
So yeah, if there's nothing if no one's saying anything on Discord, we have to stir things up a little bit ahead of time, and yeah, can always grab chain of command and be there. So.
James has got some great chain of command games. He's walked me through it. I appreciate that, and it was awesome that you always kind of had it in the hopper. Are there any other thoughts on kind of the rotation of in your clubs, your groups, your insurgencies about game days and how they're hosted before I kick it back to Wyndehurst for the next question? Shawn, I see a hand up.
Shawn and Bruce.
I just wanted to say what we do is there's a huge bolt action group. We have what they call a Discord group called Bravo Company, and there's about almost 400 people at plus or minus. And again, it listed in that the subject matters on Discord are games from historicals all the way from certainly the fantasy and the sci-fi. But when we do the bolt action communities, we put on at least 3 tournaments for bolt action, and we have one coming up in April that my partner here in crime, Jordan Weeby, that we have 36 paid attendants, and we've been sold out for 4 months, coming in April to what we call the Cinco de Gajo grad. It's the 5th Gajo grad, and these are people driving down from Montana. A big group always comes down, 3-4 guys. The key to, and I'm tying it in with the club, is that you put on a great experience for people, including getting the prize support so that people come and they know maybe they have to pay $15, but they get a, $30, $40, $50 in value back from them. And we do that all on our own as far as prize support. So I just kind of want to interject how we, at least 4 major tournaments from Thanksgiving in November to we have a new convention here called H.A.W.K.s coming in August. So lots of historical competitive play.
No, and you have with Jordan out there, Shawn, you have a kind of a great team, and I know you're a spearhead of it. But I think that's a trend that we see. Everybody that we're talking to right now, I know, is a bedrock of their local group and macro group. And so you guys probably are like, yeah, we kind of have a rotation, but I know that's crap. No, I'm kidding. I know you guys are spearheading it, is what I'm saying, is you probably are you're not the Continental Militia. The other guy you talk into it because you're busy that weeknight or something is a rock. And you have to have people like that in a group. And I think that's just important for a viewer and listener to know, like, it's a fun journey, come into it and then host games as soon as you can. Any other comments?
Well, we started, but we just to let everybody know out there, listeners, we started after COVID. I mean, that devastated a lot of stores around here. We actually have 3 more stores closing in this area. But as far as COVID, the restarted, we were getting 6 people at our events. We were getting, and this is paid, we just built it over time, put on a quality event, had lots of free stuff for people to win, and we have sponsors. It was just part of our program. And what we have done is to have 36 people, 5-6 years into this, they come down to have a good time. They spend 2 days. It's a grand tournament. They spend 2 days just playing gaming down here in Sandy, Utah. So,
and the only thing, Shawn, I really commend all the work you're doing out there, but I think it goes back to like Charlie and Bruce's point as well, is like, if you build it, they will come. And Charlie's thought on, exactly. We all don't paint fantastically. I myself do not. I hate Scott Anderson that I know him, James, because he paints too damn good. But
Tabletop ready.
Yeah, tabletop ready. As long as you've got people that are motivated and interested into it, and if you can give them a little bit of rope to kind of help them up, and whether that's encouragement or whatever, like Charlie said, or getting out there and getting a rotation, like Bruce said, it's what can help burnout, can help from one person holding up the entirety of the group, which normally doesn't lead to great results or mental health issues. I'll say for those brave souls out there that are doing everything they can to spread the historical goodness. Any other thoughts before I kick it over to Wyndehurst to go to the next question? Okay, I'll kick it over to you, buddy.
Yeah. Well, so actually, Shawn's comments kind of build into this next question about recruitment and how do you advertise. So again, part of the purpose of this is to help listeners who might be having clubs that are struggling or want to start clubs, but you guys all have established groups, organizations. How do you bring in those new members? And I'd like to start with Jason, because I know you're one of the groups here of our panel that is a very structured in the kind of more like hierarchy side. So how do you all go about it?
Well, one of the things that we did years ago, like I was a Boy Scout Scoutmaster, so we worked with our Boy Scout troop. We did merit badges that were related, like model building. We'd do painting stuff. I partnered with Mongoose Publishing a long time ago. They'd send us figures. I'd give the kids one figure each. We'd show them how to build them and paint them and develop that kind of hobby aspect. And a lot of those kids still play today, not always with our group, but they're out there doing stuff in the community.
The dark side, 40K got them. Okay, track and all.
Well, it was actually Starship Troopers, but
that can be forgiven. It's a good movie. Charlie.
Yeah, so Sorry. But that's kind of what we've always done. We've worked with church groups, done school groups. I have a chess club right now. Whatever works.
Okay. Charlie, how about for you all in such a large area? How are you guys advertising?
Right. So really have champions in every region or city that, these guys, when they go out and run games or play games in stores, etc., they're always taking the LSHM banner with them. They've got the shirts on. They've got trifold information packets.
Nice.
And really just promoting the club. And you'd be surprised at how many people will walk up and say, wow, that's pretty cool. I didn't know there was this, I've 40K or fantasy my whole life, and I didn't know there was such a thing. And so we're able to recruit a lot of people that way. I know with the group that I game with, there is never a time goes by that 3 or 4 people don't walk up to the table and inquire on what we're doing. And we have a pamphlet ready to hand to them. And, we don't pressure, obviously, anybody and just say, hey, reach out to us, communicate with us.
And the club pays for all that stuff, or is that kind of just out of individual?
It does. No, and it's minimal cost. It's a pretty professional looking trifold, but it's not that expensive. We got, like any big club like us, we have guys that are in the printing business, and they give us good discounts, and I like to put business their way. But it's really goes back to communicating. Just talking to people, be friendly, and invite them out to play. And if somebody I just want to watch, no, here's your command. Go have fun and walk them through the game.
Nice. Matthew, did you catch who had their hand up next?
I think it was Kevin.
Kevin?
I'd echo exactly what Charlie said, is that we find our best recruiting tool is our events. And as long as we're in the public space. Again, going back to gaming in a basement somewhere, doesn't get you anybody. So we have a trifold, as Charlie described. We also have bookmarks that are, on the flip side, they're rulers, 6-inch rulers that we give away, which are essentially our business cards with our information on it. But it really goes down to communications and people having a good time in the public space. And that is your best recruiting tool. And if you have a situation where they're not having a good time in the public space, that is a big detriment. So that's pretty much my answer on that. So.
Okay. Marty, I think you had up next.
Yeah, one of the things, so I was a grad student when I first joined TSS, and I still work at a university, and so one of the things that I've done and had other people reach out to me after I've done it is when it comes close to con time, just putting up posters at the libraries at the university, at the public libraries, at the bus stops, just with a little link to the registration page, or pictures or things like that. I think it's brought folks in over the years, on top of what everyone else has already mentioned, right, being ambassadors at the public gaming spaces and things like that.
Yeah. Is anybody doing any outreach into like the non-wargaming spheres? So like I've before run games at just general conventions, like nerd conventions, Comic-Con kind of stuff, just because they're like-minded individuals, that they might not know about the wargaming stuff, but you kind of bring them in that way. Shawn, unmute first, Shawn.
I got to know what our ticker's up at unmuting.
There I am. Oh, here I am. I'm back. Yeah, good question. I've kind of started a new phase. I'm calling it our community outreach, much along this stuff. This Saturday coming up, I've actually reached out to. I've always been curious if I could pull this off. But I reached out to, we have a Fort Douglas Military Museum here, and it's on the U of U campus up here in downtown Salt Lake City. And so I reached out to the curator and said, would you guys be interested in a historical tabletop demonstration? And my goodness, the guy put me, starting Saturday, he has 6 tabletops that I have 6 tabletops that I'm going to put up, and I'm kind of reaching out to the general public, and I don't know how many patrons we expect, but just an opportunity. We're going to be actually right within the exhibit, so they're learning about us and I'm learning about them, and it's free. So I always like places for free to play games, and I've invited the community to come out. So that's kind of my new phase, is the community outreach.
I think that's one for the Historical War Games Club that, just like Rob said, is like the living history events and the museums. I'd scheduled to do a Brecourt Manor battle on the attack on the 4 guns at our museum here, the Pratt Museum, and it just some colonel had to get promoted that weekend or whatever, so it didn't work out. But I think that's the living history and the stuff where I see it, especially when we're talking about us being historical war game kind of groups, insurgencies or whatnot. But those passions, that's where they come from. We've talked about this before in the past, like, why do you like that period? Why do you like that? Whether it's through media, through books, through something, you've kind of got a concern onto it. And so I think that's a great point.
Yeah. As and Marty just put in the chat, I remember when I was down in Seymour, North Carolina, that some of the TSS members, there's the Noose, the Ironclad Noose Museum. I think the ship was called the Noose, the CSS Noose. Yeah, and that they would run games there occasionally. Some members would. So yeah, that's definitely seems like a really good, if you have any kind of historical museum nearby. From my understanding, every time I've talked to somebody who's reached out to them, they're really, really receptive to giving you space to do that, especially for historical wargaming.
Yeah, they have the U of U ROTC is going to join me, and there's also a naval youth thing that goes on up there with the students, and they're all excited that Warlord's coming. So that's kind of try it. I just asked I wanted to do something to reach out to grow our community, and I'm looking forward to it happening Saturday.
Yeah, I've done some. So I will get to you, Charlie, in a second. But doing also games in public spaces that are not like the local game club, though it was on base. So like our BX, the base mall, if you will, for those who don't know, they had an empty store, and it was sitting there empty for a while. And I was like, hey, I found like one of the managers like, I've got a base club. Do you mind if we meet here in this space, set up some tables and stuff? So I was there in, the BX in one of the little storefronts running games for a couple weeks until they finally found somebody to put a shop in there. But just utilizing. Has anyone else after Charlie's? If anyone else has experience trying to do someplace like totally unrelated to wargaming, just think about it. Charlie, you had some experience on.
No, I just have to mention that. So I've been in communications with the Alamo Society.
Oh, nice.
Oh, sick.
We are looking at trying to do a Alamo reenactment miniature game on the grounds of the Alamo during the anniversary of the actual battle.
Coonskin Capper doesn't count, Charlie. That's awesome. That's awesome. I saw Rob's comment about, he's tried some significant. Has anybody had a lot of success? I will have to say the times that I've done it in conjunction or seen it done in conjunction with living history events, I don't know if James, we have a member at the club that does a lot with like black powder stuff at the Track and Hole, Shawn, who he had played like some historical and stuff in the past, and I've seen it work in the inverse where he got into like black powder type of wargaming, and then he was like, I like how this works, and he goes and does stuff with that club now as well. Anybody else with kind of benefits on this fringe historical or other types of loosely associated clubs with historical wargaming?
Marty, go ahead. You got your hand up first.
And then Bruce.
Yeah, I'll just say, one of the memories that sticks most with me from being younger, was seeing people put on these things. I remember when the Gettysburg movie came out at the movie theater, somebody was putting on a game, and and so a lot of these wouldn't be return on investments immediately, which we don't really keep track of as far as the question went there, but just letting people know there's that bigger world, and maybe it's a younger kid, or maybe it's somebody who's just traveling through or something, but just kind of keeps the idea of that hobby alive or in their mind.
Bruce?
Yeah, so we do our best to try to support other cons that are happening in our area. The Williamsburg muster and stuff, and we try to spread the word through that way. But getting new memberships is tough. You have to look at your target audience. You got to have a little bit of money. The people have got to have a little bit of time, and this happens later in their lives. Targeting the Boy Scouts has never worked. The kids don't got any money, you know what I mean? and my sister doesn't want a vacation at the con. She wants to go to Disney World. So you have all these kind of issues, right? So, but I recently, just a couple weeks ago at our game day, the guy who's in charge of the Civil War Roundtable here in Raleigh, he saw my Civil War setup, and his eyes lit up. And so, long story short, I'm hoping for rich recruiting grounds from that group this year. So we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, I'm curious because Jason had mentioned a little bit earlier doing with scouts and kids and stuff, and I've had some experience in the past with kids specifically because I either had excess stuff or I got the World of Tanks miniature game. They sent me a bunch of stuff because I was doing promos, like demo games, and because those are kind of fully assembled and ready to go, I ran a bunch of games for kids, and it's like, hey, you participated, here's some models, here's a model, here's something. And I think if you can get them, I feel bad, I feel like a drug pusher, but if you get them hooked like that, the power of complaining to mom and dad, I want this, that, or the other, I think, you get them young like that and it sticks with them. I mean, I was 13 when I was exposed to my very first miniatures, and I had no idea what it was. It's just like, oh, I can build soldiers. It's not just a model plane or tank or something. So I think there can be some success, but like Marty said, it's not maybe immediate return on investment. But Jason, I know you had your hand up if you had some follow-up before we move on to the next question.
Oh, sure. I was saying one of the things about our club is we don't worry about membership. We found a long time ago that some people are going to be elite and they're going to play at home and they're going to be doing whatever they want to do. They don't want to be in a store. Yeah, that exactly. And they don't like these people for whatever reason. And so we just kind of shifted to more community focus. We work with a store. We go out there. Whatever we do is to get people into wargaming. If they don't want to stick with our club, great. Go do something else. You want to play something none of us care about, go find your perfect match. And you guys go play at home or whatever it is. And we just shifted to the dynamic of community building away from really club building. And there's a couple of people and myself, we share the expenses for our website and whatever work there is, and we kind of drive that monthly game, and then we let everything else kind of fall where it may.
No, that's a great point. From anybody else, Rob, James, or Kevin, any other thoughts on this with fringe recruiting?
Well, I can add in that we have done the one museum event in October, which was based upon the attack on Cahokia, Illinois during the American Revolution. And we will be doing the American Civil War at the same museum in, actually this next weekend. We did not, and I get a lot of people beyond our own game group to come to the museum. What it did give us was a little prestige as a group.
That's
and
valuable.
this next one will give us the same level of prestige where we can capitalize on that if we're sharp, and I'm not sure we are, that we can take that someplace else. We can take it to a veterans group. We can take it to a library, possibly a school later on, and do demos and show off the hobby. As to whether we're going to pick up anybody or not, I worked retail for decades, and there was an old saying that said, if you can't make money, you make friends. And sometimes you make friends and they come back and see you later. So immediate return on investment, probably not, but it doesn't hurt, so we make friends. So that's my comments. So,
no, great insight. Any other thoughts? All right, moving on to the next kind of question and kind of speeding through time here. We've had some great discussion already, and we're hour and a half over already into it. So I'm going to combine these next questions with, does your club kind of game in a single period? Does it game big games or skirmish? And then I'm going to add kind of a follow-up question to that is, what has been the most beneficial and why? And you can come at that from any angle on either recruiting or speed or anything. And me and Rob have talked about this a lot, just in the sense of, hey, skirmish games, if you listen to Yorkshire Gamers podcast, right, he hates them, right? Bring the big game back, make the big game great again. And skirmish games are so normally easy from a price point model to like get people in, and then especially on club days or something like that. But I'll kick this question because, Rob, you didn't talk a lot on that last part, but you had some great insights you typed in the chat. I'll kick it over to Rob at the H.A.W.K.s for skirmish, big pitch battle, and then periods. Do you find between all of that, and that's a very loaded question, what do you find to be, the maximize for whatever you guys are going for up there?
So the remembering that our club was originally founded by a bunch of people that wanted to play more games and find some opponents to do that. We have always played everything. So skirmish games, big games, it's just whatever anybody felt like they wanted to bring, with the caveat that it's easier to put on a big game on an infrequent Saturday special game day than it is on a Friday night where it's got to go up and down in 3 hours. So that's been the we probably are spending more time on skirmish games lately. The other oddity, of course, of our club is that we have a number of rules writers in the group. This seat could have been occupied by Buck Surdu.
I know, the legend in the hobby.
And we end up working through a lot of Buck's games. So whatever that happens to be. So at the moment, there's a lot of combat patrol going on, World War I and World War II skirmish, and the subsidiary versions of that for other periods. But if you don't mind something a little less historical, we've also been playing, it seems, a lot of Wars of Oz lately. So Napoleonics with Munchkins.
No, it's interesting.
Not everybody's take.
Yeah, I saw that at Historicon one year. It was quite interesting.
It's always when you have the author that you're playing with, the reason, if you're ever writing a script for a game or you're going to host a game, you always say, this is black powder, this is Fire and Fury, but it's modified. And that's just so you can make it up on the fly and be a good GM, like good GMs are supposed to. So that would be interesting to playing with Sergio.
I remember that.
You just say, this is modified. But no, I think, James, your hand was up next. So thoughts on that with periods, pitch battles, skirmishes, best rate of return, and kind of what's the priority you put on the return? People, our GMs, are in between.
We do a little bit of everything. Like I said, we've got a Roman invasion of Britain campaign going on currently. I think a lot of it tends, because we're sort of, as someone said, we're an autonomous collective. The games that are put on tend to be what interests the GM. So, Chain of Command, my historical sort of mainstay is World War II. That's my thing. So I run those kind of games. Although I'm also into American Civil War and other things, and have played in every genre. So, and this does bring up a topic I've been interested in between, say, not necessarily skirmish versus large game, but just the fact that, more of the more modern rules that have come out, and I say modern, last 10 years, tend to be sort of a one-on-one as they're designed. Even Chain of Command, which I play, is sort of originally designed one-on-one, where when we have a group of 12 to 15 people every week, that type of game, I've learned to expand and have more like 6 people per, than one-on-one. And I'm curious how other people are handling it. When I first started, we did Command Decision. And if you look through any of their scenario books, most of their average games were 6 to 10 people in a scenario. You don't see that as much now. So much so that the other week I heard on the Wargamers Strategy and Tactics podcast, in the background, one of their guys said, that he was going to travel to his, weekly club, even though he didn't have a game book that week. He was just going to go hang out. And that struck me, a game book. So I reached out to him as to, what did he mean by that, and how did they do that? That, they sort of, because a lot of their games are one-on-one, they are just contacting each other within their club and saying, hey, Bob, do you want to meet this week and play X? So I'm curious how other people do that, whether it is larger games or several people getting together to play, one-on-one type games on a weekly basis.
No, modifying is a great lesson learned there, James. What about hitting it to Jason, Kevin, and then Sean? Jason, go first on thoughts on this.
Sure. Like I said, I worked with Mongoose, and we used Starship Troopers rules, so I kind of used that in a bunch of different other periods, everything from Zorro to Dark Age, whatever it is that we're doing, because we've kind of angled at how do we do a multiplayer game, because I can push a game every month, and getting other people to step up being game master isn't there. And a lot of the stores are like, open play this night for this game and this night for this game. So the way we've worked around it is, how do we get people to build a collection of stuff, come down to a game, and bring kind of their own force so they're invested in what we're doing. We've done it a lot with like British Colonials, more recently G.I. Joe, using like modern figures and stuff.
Yeah. Kevin, thoughts on this as well?
Well, we basically do a little bit of everything, which apparently seems to be the theme here.
Yeah.
So skirmish gaming is easier in the sense that you can get in and get out and set up and run it in 15 minutes, which is something we shoot for, being set in 15 minutes. One thing I will note, based upon the statistics that I have seen internally is that naval gaming is pretty popular, and you can call it skirmish gaming to a degree, but based upon the numbers of hits on our website and our Facebook page, when we do a naval game, it will go sometimes 10 times the number of hits as opposed to a land-based game of some type. So I will just pass that on for whatever it's worth. So.
No, that's a good point. Sean?
Yeah, I was just going to say, the Gajo Historical Society, they like the Napoleonics era. They just like, lining up their 28 millimeters, or they go to Epic. And we've been playing we don't play World War II, and because I organize those games on different days outside the club, but it's all about Napoleonics, American War of Independence. A few years ago, we kind of had fun with muskets and tomahawks.
Love
we
it.
tried Little Big Horn, and I got a bunch of cavalry and Indians that we put up on the board. That was kind of fun, but mostly Napoleonics. They just like putting their guys out and charging.
You heard it here first, folks. Mormonism in Utah and Napoleonic wargaming.
Yep.
It's what they're known for. Other kind of thoughts from Bruce, Charlie, anybody else on this? On kind of, I assume the answer is the same. Everybody games everything, but what do you any other points of success or kind of failures with that you think of, Bruce?
The thing is we're all creatures of time, right? And so trying to get together 6 guys for a big game is actually difficult. The schedules all got to match up. Is this day good? Is this hour good? And so forth. So putting on a small game, all you need is one other guy, right? So, and you got to catch as can. So if is all you can get together is one guy, well, it's going to be a skirmish game, The bigger games, I've always, if more people come, that's great, but all I need is one opponent is the way I view it. If nobody else shows up, you got plenty to do, and it's even more fun, right? So
Yeah.
But getting 5 or 6 guys in the same room between conventions is kind of difficult, especially when you're so far apart like we are here in Raleigh.
Yeah, I know from my own experience, it's been a real challenge. I mean, whenever Matthew and I get together to game, when we game at his place, we can usually get nice big Hail Caesars, style armies out. But my own collection of Dark Age armies, that's equal size, 300-400 miniatures an army, trying to take that somewhere to set up and game and just a few hours of playing, that is really a challenge, and that I think that does limit a lot of people when you have to go somewhere to game. And I know the club I gamed with when I was here the first time, they met once a month at like a community center, and then about half the club would meet another time in the month at one of the guy had like an outbuilding they built that was like a dedicated game space, and we'd do one game in there, and that was usually our large scale game, and it'd be like 4 to 8 players. But we had to do it there because either he had all the army, or it was very easy for one other player to bring their force and another force and combine it all together. I know that's a real challenge. But moving on, so another piece of advice you all can offer the audience, to our listeners, especially in clubs, and some of you have touched on this a little bit, especially in kind of talking about the dynamics between having a very collective style setup versus hierarchical, but dealing with personalities. I feel, and even my wife will regularly say this about the historical wargaming community specifically, is what an amazing community is, how supportive it is, how friendly it is, but we still get those occasional rotten apples, bad seeds. But we don't want to stifle the hobby or stifle anyone's enjoyment. So how do you all manage, or do you have much experience? Has that come up managing? I see, Shawn, you already got your hand up, so I'll go ahead and let you start off this one.
You just said it. It is an amazing community that we have here. And again, I just got back from Las Vegas Open, running and organizing the logistics for the bolt action tournament, Nocturne Panzer. And it takes care of itself. As far as I haven't had an asshole come in. You can mute that if you want. But
normally that means you are the one, Shawn. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking.
But we don't have that problem, and people tend not to play with each other anyway. I think Jason mentioned that. They don't want to play with X. They don't want to play with Y as far as personalities. It kind of manages itself, I've noticed. I've never had to be, if there's a hot political conversation, then that kind of is not allowed. We don't talk politics here and at the stores because it's quite frankly rude, and we're there to roll dice and game. But it manages itself in my area.
Yeah, there was a guy I was talking to not too long ago who was kind of a bit more of a recent convert to historicals from 40K, and he was just shocked at how more supportive the historical community is and how toxic at least his local 40K community was. So I know some of these clubs, some of our clubs here are much more diverse in what they play. So I'm curious if you've had any experience between just the historical side members and the non. But Matthew, Catch, you had their hand up next.
I believe it was Kevin.
And then I think it was Bruce or Marty was next after that.
But just like everybody else, somewhere along the way, if you haven't run into a problem, you're going to.
Right.
And we have.
Fair.
And we have run into some recently, where we basically packed a game up because it was getting too tense.
Wow.
What I have done since that is I've reached out to, we have one of our county police officers that's a member of the group, to ask him on de-escalation techniques that he's been trained in. And we have a reverend in our group as well. And he's written up some guidelines for us to use.
Wow.
So that normally when we have game day, I host the game day and I don't participate. So I will be the one that is managing the event. And if we have a problem at a table, I will be the one intervening. And using these techniques that I've picked up, and there's no rocket science here, but it's a matter of trying to defuse a situation. Again, we don't talk politics. The stores we're in, they have policies about behaviors, and it's just a matter of trying to accommodate what the store requires, plus keeping things calm. Normally, everybody's great. Sometimes you have a couple people that just rub each other the wrong way, and you have to deal with it. And you have to deal with it quickly before it blows up.
Yeah.
So,
No, that's an excellent point, Kevin. And then I'll be honest, I haven't been at a table where I think it's escalated to fisticuffs. That's interesting. Who gets the morale +1 modifier. But
Right.
The thought would be a lot of us are talking kind of like the person that's antagonistic and stuff like that. And I would say that in talking to groups and in my travels you can have people that do it in a little bit more of a subtle way, and especially somebody that's new to historical wargaming, like they've been termed phrase anyway, neckbeards or grognards or something like that. But even that way, kind of isolating or not having people kind of come in. And with that, I'll kind of hand it over. I believe Bruce was next.
Yeah, I think Bruce, and then Marty. And then
so a couple of thoughts on that. The problem child at the table, you can kind of shut them down and say those discussions are for after the game. That's a technique that I use. And then a lot of players, especially the new players, they haven't learned how to lose, either in wargaming or in any other part of their life. And so this is a process of people getting, to a place where you're winning if you're playing the game. Winning and losing during the game is, to a lot of veteran players, is irrelevant. You won by just simply being at play. But most guys don't understand how to lose, where you got to, lose with grace and win with some honor, and
well said.
And then you also have to consider players will divide themselves, but our hobby divides us as well. I play a lot of different games. I don't think anybody would dispute that, but I won't be at a Napoleonics game. So, some guys, our hobby divides us by genre, by scale, by paint jobs. Some guys are naval war gamers and piss off to the people on land and vice versa. So we sort ourselves out into these groups based on what this hobby is getting us.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that with the younger wargamers. because my experience is, so I've got two boys, 10 and 7, and of course they've grown up with this, so I teach them the game, and that is something I'm starting to go through with them, is like they're being good sports when they're winning, and then when it turns around and dad kicks your butt all of a sudden because your dice just, your luck left
Life
you.
lesson.
It's like, hey, we're still having fun, and that adage, some of my best games are ones where I lost miserably, and I think that is something getting them to understand.
Way more than I've won.
Yeah, but another thing to consider as well.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Before I get to Marty, as his thoughts, another thing also to keep in mind. So like the club I was here with when I was here the first time, they all got along really well. When they met for the big group, there was the core group kind of like played together, and there were some other groups, like you said, they were self-divided in what they played. Amongst our group, there was one player who was notorious for having an elastic tape measure, or picking up dice after he rolled them, but everyone knew it, and so everyone just kept him honest, and it never turned into a fight. It's like, what? I mean, I'd be watching these guys like, wait, no, you don't measure from the front and then jump the tape measure at the end. Like, what are you doing? And he'd be like, what? And so everyone had just built a good dynamic, I think, on how to manage that. But that's something I think if you didn't have a good group, it could escalate.
I think Jason had his hand raised. It keeps disappearing.
I was just going to say that a lot of the times, people kind of separate on their own, but on the same token, you have to work with like the store owner, the convention owner, and find out kind of what are their norms in the store and how are you going to deal with it if it's at somebody's house. A lot of that is kind of at that person's discretion, how they want it to be done and how much they're going to tolerate.
Yeah.
And kind of as the game host, you have to be mindful of that. And when I'm in a store, I find it's really important to involve the store owner. You can't let the store owners tell you it's the club's responsibility and the club's out the door. You have to have the store also take some ownership and not just kind of hide behind the club as a way not to lose sales.
Yeah, that's a good point. Marty, you're next.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's the sorting, right? Certain people won't game with other people at the table, and there's that. But, I think just like trying to find people to play games and having a thick skin for that, sometimes, whether it's the GM, whether it's a more senior person in the club, whether it's the person running the con, doesn't have to do it in public, right? But can kind of say, no, I'm sorry, this is not how this community engages with each other. What you did is not cool. And just as a younger member of the club coming in, it was really good to see that. There was, I remember being at the table once and somebody threw somebody else's figures and everyone was shocked.
Where's the firing squad?
The guy who was hosting and ran it, didn't call the guy out right there, didn't make a big scene, but firmly and politely just kind of walked him to the side, had some words and moved him on, and just kind of seeing that it doesn't have to be escalatory, and as Kevin said, you can still draw lines and have norms without it being escalated or de-escalating. I think is really important when you're building a community.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, Shawn, you had some more thoughts?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about a GM that to prevent the incoming negativity at a gaming table. This guy actually vets his players. You can't get in until he's seen you play one-on-one. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not a dice god believer. I just throw dice. Well, this guy's a dice god believer, and he thinks it really matters. And I keep telling him the dice are not your friend, so why are you trying to think it is? So he actually vets every player. And when he runs these events from 10 to 14 players every month, and each one of them know that they've been vetted by the GM, and they have to follow the rules. And what does that mean? If you're the commander and he appoints a commander for each side, if you're the commander, your underlings have to do what he says. Is that move to the right, move to the left, take that.
Go get me a Coke, Rob.
Yeah. So that's how he prevents that madness, and he, somehow it works. I just wanted to say that.
Interesting.
I saw another hand.
Who's got it?
Kevin.
Kevin.
Yeah. In response to that, we have a GM of similar ilk, and that basically has his invitational group. And essentially what that becomes, in my opinion, is it's a private game. It's a basement game in a public space. And we don't include that in our advertising and our promotions because it's a private game. Enjoy your game, have a good time, but it's not part of what we do. So that's my thoughts on it.
It does sound like a technique if you're part of a club and you want to be able to include members at home games, because like we said, when you're running games at home, it's very much up to the homeowner, kind of what they're comfortable with and all that stuff. So I think there is something to be said about, hey, if you're trying to build maybe your own kind of homegrown player base of people you play with at home, that there's something to be said about go to the public space, get some games in with them, and make sure they're people you're comfortable with, that you have the same feelings. But I agree as well that I probably wouldn't include those games under the traditional kind of club mentality. Maybe kind of one of the, if they also play amongst the kind of homogenous larger group occasionally. But yeah, it's just as kind of as a trick or tool.
I have to highlight it, and it just goes back to kind of everybody's experience with, decades in the hobby. Is, Jason put on some comments here in our little chat about obviously swearing, which I'm a victim of, I'll say. But then, there's other things that can kind of be exclusionary to like Kevin's point and everybody else's point. I think, it goes back to even Charlie's point about communication. And most of you are the tip of the spear in your kind of hobby nexus, even if it is an insurgency, like there is somebody that's voted a tribal leader. And so it seems that you have a good kind of at least pulse on it. And Rob said some comments in here, about the private game being a spinoff for the main club. But also, Rob, you'd said earlier in the chat about it is a little bit self-sorting. It's interesting on the comments on this, and this is something I think we can spend a lot more time on. But in order to redirect and kind of be a good steward of your guys' time, these gentlemen are on social media. They are out there in their presence. I would ask them if you've run into issues like this, and definitely there is no such thing as plagiarism in the wargaming historical kind of hobby, in a sense of, reach out to people who have done it before and lessons learned. And then that's going to segue us into our kind of the last two questions I'm going to combine because we still have two little quick segments to get through before we wrap this up. And we're not going to be Joe Rogan 4-hour podcast, although I know we could all talk for it. So these last two questions, I'm going to combine them together. And then Rob, you're over there, silent assassin. I'm going to kick it back to you for this one, Rob, to get you some airtime here. And so other than kind of what's been discussed, what are some of the major lessons learned or points of growth for your club? So what is the hill that you either regret or something that kind of changed your direction? And for the rest of the panel, this question is going to come to you. But just like a good Army AAR, right? Name one thing you guys did great. Name one thing you guys did poorly. And so I would say, other than what's kind of been discussed, or even if you want to double tap on that and give another avenue, what are some major success stories? So I guess I'm looking for one down and one up. We always start with what we have done horribly or we've messed up, and then we can end on a high note with each one of you and saying, this is kind of what I would say is added to the success. I know that communication is going to be a bedrock of that, but what I'm looking for is any other kind of specific antidotes or some type of story or kind of synopsis of a thing. So Rob Dean from H.A.W.K.s, I'll kick it to you for the one down, one up.
Okay, well, if you really want one down, I will say that we have discussed recently our average member age is continuing to go up. So we have been considering again this question of how we go about finding, we're not going to find kids, let's be serious, but how we find some more 30-somethings to join the group, because that's where we were when we started. And now we're a group of mostly 50 to 60-somethings. So recruiting is probably our weak point as far as that goes for our actual club. As far as successes, probably the single most important thing that we did that caused the group to be what it is today is getting together with the HMGS conventions and putting together the H.A.W.K.s rooms. So we looked around and found that we were already a collective of game masters, and that we were running enough games at conventions that we could run more games for them more easily if they would let us deal with the scheduling and put us all in one place, so that we could swap multiple games on the same terrain and things like that. So we took that over really very early on, as early as '96, and that has been the main factor in our growth. So we would get people coming into the room at the convention and going, well, as one of the big clubs, it's like, well, that's an interesting way to look at it, because there's 20 of us. Really? Well, what about the other 200 of you? If there's 20 people putting on games, there must be 10 people not putting on games for every guy that's putting on a game. No, it's 20 guys, 20 game masters, and that's our superpower, is that we're this game master collective, and it's the putting it together for the conventions that really brought that out.
Nice.
No, I want to give you a credit, Rob, on this one, because you guys instrumental in my early days in Historicon. I was the dumb kid that came over to your table with my Cheeto encrusted hands and touched all your miniatures, and it was great. I think I played like some early Napoleonics or something with you guys, and then I know you do the paint and or you do Army in a Box, where you donate it to kids or
Armies for Kids.
Armies for Kids, that's it.
Yes,
so you guys,
we're setting up to do this year, and that, by the way, we run that on donations. So that's we don't end up with recruits for the club, but that's bread cast upon the waters. We noted recently that one of the Armies for Kids, early Armies for Kids recipients, came back and was awarded a Best in Show or received one of the awards at the HMGS convention within the last year or two. So
that's awesome, Rob.
That at least was somebody that stuck with it.
Great one down and one up. Shawn, I see your hand raised. I'll kick it to you.
Well, I got a few things to say about what the highs and lows. I'll start with the lows. When we came out of COVID, there was nobody supporting these stores. And I just kind of want to say a sidebar here. I want to congratulate everybody that's on this as far as your organizing skills, is that we're doing these stores a favor because we're doing it for free. And so we actually help build up the community. It was down. It was pretty hairy here. And now we have a robust, the high is that we have a robust community of gamers that I'm reaching out all over the Intermountain West, which includes the Montana, which includes Jason down in Nevada, which includes California. Steve Montgomery is out there building. We have 2 new raiders. We have one in San Francisco now. And as far as Warlord is concerned, I just think we're building a community, and I'm excited about it. So that's the high. And we're doing a lot of work for these stores because they don't have to do it because they're trying to pay the bills. And I totally get it. So.
That's excellent point. I'll kick it to Kevin next. You got your hand up.
All right. Probably our most recent low was about this time last year. We came out of COVID and such, and we were mostly tied to miniature market stores. Basically, their store in Manchester Road, and that so the group wasn't as diverse, I suppose, is for lack of a better term. Most of our events were held at that store. Now, they had a great game room. It was like a barn. But when they closed, we were basically out of a place to play and run games. At that time, I shifted to a more regional look, and we have since gone to their St. Peter's store. We've gone to another store called Game Night. We have Fantasy Books and Games, Impact Games, and some other smaller stores we have visited. And as Shawn stated, is that we do them a favor, but they're doing us a favor as well. So it's one hand washing the other. So I guess our lows is basically getting kicked in the butt and learning that we can't be tied to just one place. We have to be regional. So that's my thoughts.
No, great point, Jason.
Oh yeah, for us, kind of our low in 25 years is getting other people to run something than just me. So, driving a monthly game is kind of what we've done, and getting somebody else to step up and not just pull people into their garage or whatever is the challenge, because stores have this game that sells well and they want to promote that, etc. But then the high for us has been, since COVID, I've been trying to go, well, look, we're playing, like yesterday, we're playing Team Yankee. 32 points a player. We got 4 people aside. It's that Red Dawn scenario book. And I've got one guy that's really passionate about Team Yankee. So I'm hosting the game, but I'm making him run the rules. And I'm just kind of supervising what he's doing and making sure everybody's happy and the store's happy. And that's been kind of my high the last couple of years.
No, it's a great point. And again, it was some consistency we see kind of with what you guys are doing and holding clubs together, helping kind of push them. James, I'll kick it over to you for track and hole.
Yeah, I would have to say our highs has been sort of recently coming out of COVID and landing in a new place that obviously works because we're growing. Prior to COVID, we had spent about 2 years gaming in 2 different local stores in Nashville. Mostly, those stores were mostly based in either cards or role playing. And in several years, we gained no new people. And we were gaming, a number of different things at those stores, even running some, 40K and stuff to try and draw them in, and nothing. And then we end up in a non-store location, and we've grown. We've more than doubled our group. So location, right? Lows, I think currently we've had a few people looking for Saturday games, even like a once a month Saturday game. But that has just kind of, fallen to the way, we schedule them, and unfortunately I'm not available on Saturdays, and we don't yet have a person to drive that. And without someone there to drive it, we book space and time and put it out there, and then nothing happens. So yeah, a little disappointed in the potential of a Saturday game that allows us longer, bigger, longer games than we get on a Tuesday night. But in discussing it among ourselves, there's just a lot of us who we've got families and things, and so Saturdays aren't the greatest days for some of us. But I don't know why we haven't yet found some of the others that do, and that 1 or 2 people that can really drive it. So
yeah, Martin, I see your hand next. What's the low and the high of TSS? And Bruce, I'm going to come to you next to tie in with it, or either say Martin's full of crap.
Yeah, so I think maybe it kind of gets to this idea of our semi-autonomous collective or whatever. I think that distribution of efforts and kind of people willing to bear some of the load is really a high, and many of the other folks on this call have kind of talked about how their clubs are very much the same way, right? It's not formal. There's not a rubber stamp on things, and it lets people try different things. I've personally failed kind of trying to over-organize game days where it had to have a theme or it had to do this, and that's fine because somebody else is running Thursday night games, and that's great. I think the other thing it buffers against is the low, which is when you end up in situations where everybody thinks, oh, so-and-so is the person who organizes every event. And when that person gets burned out, there's a real chance that a club dissipates, right? And so, I've seen us kind of brush up on some of those things sometimes, and I've seen how it can flourish when everybody's kind of empowered in a group to try to grow the hobby.
Great points. Bruce, what are your thoughts on the low and high?
So, I'm a generally positive guy. I think we can be too hard on ourselves on the lows. We just rock along and focus on what we love to do, and don't worry about the lows so much. That just kind of comes with the territory. So you take the wins where you can, because I guess I'm a little bit philosophical about the whole thing, but
love it.
You just take the wins where you can and leave the lows behind and keep moving forward.
No, it's great points, and the fact that not everything is going to be this grand plan that works together, and it's important to, man, if you can dust it off and that's the attitude and it can keep you rolling as a GM or somebody who's core to a wargaming group, you're gonna go far, because trust me, there's gonna be a lot of times where you fall flat on your face. But Charlie, kicking it over to you for the last kind of alibi on this question is
sure. And I'm gonna cheat here, and I'm gonna have two highs. Having a marquee event, I think, leads to a lot of success. Our annual convention, Millennium Con, really draws everybody from the state of Texas to one place. And we've expanded to a 4-day convention, started two days about 5 years ago. Our ultimate goal is we want Millennium Con to be known as the Historicon of the West. And that's kind of our ultimate
Take
goal.
that, Sean.
Yeah. We'll compete with them. But no, having a successful large event like that draws everybody in. We use all genres of gaming. From, like I've said, from historical to sci-fi to fantasy, role play. It's still 60-70% historical because it is a historical miniature convention. But bring everybody in, and it's truly a family reunion, because you see the same guys every year. Like I said earlier, we had 80 new members that joined at the convention, so it's a great recruiting tool for us, and it grows every year. Started a couple hundred people, we're up to over 400 now, and growing every year. So that's one high, and I think that helps a club grow when you have something that everybody talks about throughout the year. I mean, I've already getting guys, we're holding it in October, and I've got guys writing me that are saying, hey, can I do this game? Can I do this? What do you want me to run at the convention? And so we have a good variety. And I'll tell you, the second thing is the LSHM board of directors we've got 9 guys on the board that are all superstars. And everybody fulfills their role. I'll tell you, we have 2 treasurers that have been with the club for probably 30 years plus. Both are key players. They manage the money, keep us honest, and really the entire board. And we bring new blood in. About every 2 years, we bring a new member of the board in to get something new and fresh. Everybody's open communications. We meet regularly. It just so happens all of us are here in San Antonio. So that's one of our challenges is, getting broad and bringing more people in from the outside of San Antonio area. The one challenge we have, and luckily, knock on wood, we have a good guy in the role right now, but your whole IT, having, somebody that's new and hip to the, the new way of doing things and communicating and, using all the different platforms to reach out to the, because we've talked about it here, the aging of the hobby. And luckily we've got, here in Texas, we've got a ton of, teenagers and 20-year-olds that are part of the group.
Nice.
I'm actually shocked that I'm probably the oldest guy or one of the oldest guys in the group. But keeping a good IT professional on your board and an active guy, not someone that's just going to sit back and hold the role but not be active, and because a lot of this stuff is challenging for us older guys to keep up with.
Thanks.
Same. Yeah, I'm waiting for James Rogers to create a track and hold TikTok so I can see his TikTok dances where he's advertising for games. But I'll kick it back to Rob. So the last two, we've kind of summarized the points and walking through. I'm going to kick it over to Rob for our kit bag. But before I do that, I just want to say again to the listener, I truly appreciate each and every one of you members from coming in your collective area and your, kind of guys of a historical wargaming club, insurgency, or group that you've amalgamated to just kind of get out there and game. Like Bruce says, like you have a positive mental attitude and you can achieve a lot with being a GM or somebody who's pushing the hobby and communication with Charlie. All of you guys have said amazing comments. I'm truly, fortunate that you all decided or got hoodooed into joining us and to talk about this. Because I do think from everything I've heard in Europe and everywhere else, it's an interesting part. Like, how does the U.S. do it? And how do groups in different areas do it? And we're so big, and there's so many lessons learned that each and every one of you have. Just another plug for each and every one of your sites. As the listener or viewer, please join these groups. Look out at them. They are all over the place, and you're always going to get a good hoot and laugh if you look at Bruce's reels. So highly recommend Triangle Simulation. But no, I'll kick it over. Our last two sections for the people on the panel here are we're going to do. I kick it to Rob for our kit bag as we talked, and then I will finish up with our scouting report where we'll all talk for 30 seconds or less about what's next in the hobby for us.
Yeah. So we always do this at the end of every episode. It's so first our kit bag, and then Matthew will take over scouting report. So be thinking about your scouting report, because we're looking at like the future. What's the next thing for your all's group maybe coming up, and this episode will probably go out here in the next week or so. But for kit bag, we like to try and think of something that we can offer the community, what's a useful tool. So in the realm of, as groups and organizations and clubs, what has your group found is the best platform for keeping everyone tied in, communicating, and organizing those games? We've kind of mentioned Discord, Facebook pages, websites. I've seen groups here that do like WhatsApp messagings, things like that. So just kind of we'll go around and just kind of what everyone's club is doing, what works best for you all. And Charles, since I know Charlie, you're the big one in communication, I'll let you start this one since you kind of hit on it there with your.
Yeah, and we've already kind of discussed it. I mean, you can't over communicate. I mean, you don't want to be abusive. I tell everybody up front, I'm not going to spam you. You're going to get one email a month from me, and it's going to be a newsletter. But then when you get to Discord, Facebook, we have multiple Facebook pages for different types of groups. And that's the place to communicate. If someone's actively going to Facebook to look and you're over communicating them with them there, I think that's a positive. What we don't want to do is you're getting 10 emails a day from LSHM. No one's going to open them. And so that's kind of been our practice, and it's been successful. And I think that's one of the positives in the way to do it.
So for you all, Facebook's been the most useful for coordinating games and everything.
And our new IT guy is a big Discord guy, so we've created some Discord channels that people are communicating in. So really, again, use them all.
Okay.
And if you have a good IT professional that knows, all the different platforms, that's a huge bonus.
Yeah. All right, great. James?
Yeah, and on Discord, that's something we moved to, it's something we discovered during COVID. Some of us were using it to continue to game online and keep things moving. And then as we came back and our group grew, we started, we were texting each other, and we had a text group of like 4 or 5 people. Well, that kind of works, but that doesn't work when you have 20 or more people in a text group. So we moved to Discord. I think anybody in the group would agree it's been an excellent move. You can add multiple channels. So there's a 3D printing channel. So the guys within the group that do that can communicate. There's a general communication just for whatever. I said we had an ongoing campaign. There's a separate campaign channel. So all the guys in the campaign can communicate with each other. we've had a number of people who've been traveling in the last year to. We had a group of us go to Europe and spend 2 weeks doing World War II battlefields, and we were putting pictures up on on a separate channel. And we had a gentleman just go to New Zealand, and so it's been a fabulous way for our group as a community to stay together in lots of different ways. It's a great tool, like I said, for the campaigns and such.
Nice. Yeah. So that's two for Discord. That's great. Jason, you had your hand up next.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We had dabbled with Discord briefly. A lot of the stores like it because it draws the attention into the store and kind of out of the community, which has kind of been a turnoff for our group. We used to use Yahoo groups, and now we use Facebook pretty exclusively because anybody can search and find us that way. And Discord really, keeps you in the store, keeps you in one game system, whatever it is, and that just hasn't worked for community building for us.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I've had some issues. So as I'm getting ready to move and I'm looking at new clubs, groups to join, I think one of the risks with Facebook that is might be an advantage with Discord, is you need admins usually to run your Facebook. And some groups, it seems like if the admin drops off, then no one else can join. So I know each platform seems to has its own challenge. Bruce, you had your hand up next. Oh, you're muted. You're muted, Bruce.
Yep, we've got a Facebook presence, but we just use one message board. When you go to the TSS site, if you want to keep in touch with other guys, it's that one message board that everybody either goes to or lurks on. The other thing that we started with the Spring Offensive, is you can sign up using a Google Drive. So we don't require anybody to pay money before they sign up for a game or want to put on a game. You go to the Google Drive link, you sign your name on there, and you're in. You know what I mean? So we're this is kind of new ground for us. I tried it last year with some success, and so it seemed to work pretty well and certainly streamline the registration process. You can do it for a small con, but for a big one, you probably couldn't get away with it. But
interesting.
Yeah, that's what.
You haven't looked at using Google Drive for something like that. I'll have to keep that in mind. Rob?
Yeah. If I were starting it today, we would probably set it up on Discord, but we have had a email mailing list.
Yeah, I'll fix that. All right. Go ahead.
Email mailing list since sometime in the 90s, originally on one list, later on Yahoo groups. And today we're on some setup called io.com. Everybody's comfortable with the email list. It's only the 40 or so of us that are on it, so the amount of traffic never becomes overwhelming.
Hey, that works. Charles, I know you had mentioned you all had a set plan, like to bring people in as far as platform. Who have we missed?
Sean and Martin's got his hand raised.
Oh yeah, I'll go. I was just going to say that.
Sean again.
I got Bruce. Bruce.
Okay.
Sean is the one that's. Oh yeah.
Yeah, both of them somewhere getting feedback.
I was just going to add on to the groups.io is what we use, which is what they were talking about, and the nice things there are you can make tags, right? So you can have a buy and sell threads that people can choose to see or not. It integrates with calendars, which is great when people are trying to make sure those schedules go. So I think that's been really useful for us. Just wanted to add that.
Nice.
I think Kevin and Sean.
Well, we're using Facebook now, but again, my meeting with my marketing guy this week, we're going to try and move away from it as much as possible. Basically, it's gotten to be garbage, and so we're using email. We use an email blast. We use our website. We will continue to use Facebook, but we're going to use it just to announce things on the website. As he posted, it is the enshittification of Facebook, which I believe is the term used, and it's reached its end stages and as people will start moving away from it. So we're going to try and minimize our exposure there, still maximizing its benefit to us, which so that's my comments on what we're doing on here. Platform.
Interesting. Yep, Sean.
Yeah, Discord is where all the people go now, and especially the young folk. And so, like you say, Facebook's going off. I totally agree. We use it because it's fun to post pictures there, I guess. But TikTok, we really haven't had any exposure to that on that level. We haven't had any, but Discord with the multiple individual subjects, and all you old guys, you got to turn off the notification thing or your phone will go crazy. And there is a way for you to turn off notifications on Discord. But what I have done as I oversee the Intermountain West, I joined the store's Discords. I request them. Some of them don't do any historical, so I request that they do Warlord because, gee, that's what I do. And I have stores, probably 15 stores that I belong on Discord, so I can kind of track my guys, be it there in Nevada, I'm tracking you, Jason, or up in Helena, Montana. And that's what I use it for, because when I see lots of activities up in Boise, there's a wonderful club up there that I watch through their particular ABU game store. And that's how I can see what's going on and maybe see trends. So Discord is my magic wand.
Yeah, it definitely seems Discord seems to be a very popular one. I've seen a lot of groups on Facebook, but I know, like I said earlier, you can run into issues with active admins, or if you leave it open. I've seen ones that like anyone can join, and then they do just turn into a spam site. And if the admins aren't going in and purging out stuff, it just ruins the experience. So it definitely seems like Facebook requires more management maybe than Discord does. Or potentially can require more.
James has something.
Yeah, in the Discord / Facebook, we still have a Facebook group, and it's not open to the public as far as posting, but it is our sort of outward facing, trying to get people to join. Find this thing where Discord is more of the internal group communications. I think lately we have not done as much as we should on Facebook of the posting the pictures, and so that people who aren't in our normal group, that's the way they're going to see us. You're going to have to get pictures out there and what's going on to generate that interest. I'm looking at Instagram a little bit. I don't know in the way that works, if it will work.
Same.
I know one of the co-owners of Cigar Box told me a couple of years ago, you need to get on Instagram. You need to be on Instagram. So I'm trying to be on Instagram. We're not going to do TikTok. I don't see that happening.
My only thoughts to this are, I think Facebook I just like the medium more. I agree that there's some bad components of it, but where I game a lot and I rotate a lot, when I get on Discords, there's sometimes where people aren't being a good stewards of like what that small group is supposed to be for Discord. And then Discord is so hard if you have multiple groups or you're trying to get out there to manage. And I feel like I can do that easier on Facebook. And then Facebook, because it's for me, I don't really care too much. I like organizing games as albums, because there's been so many times when I was growing up and younger in the hobby where I just couldn't look back at these cool games that I'd gamed. And so I like that kind of asset with Facebook. And again, I'm an 80-year-old man trapped in my body, so I'm not gonna you young whippersnappers that with your TikTok and your Discord I will come to maybe one day, but I'm not there yet. I'm going to Facebook it up. Me and Mark Zuckerberg are going to just chill in the Wargaming highlight, and I'll post some reels. Everyone, reels will be new for me. I don't normally do reels. Bruce is teaching me. So great point.
And Jason, I agree with you. Facebook is easy. So I will say this for anyone out there who's building a community. I've run Facebook groups and stuff for local communities, and it's super easy. The risk is if your group only has one person who's like your guru for managing that, and they drop off, it can really hurt you because it's almost impossible to get another admin added when the current admin is gone. And that's why I think it's just a caveat. It can be a challenge. I don't know how that works with Discord. That's not something I have a whole lot of experience in running Discord. So again, the lesson there with either one is don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't leave the keys to the tool in just one person's hand. It's the same, Jason, like you're saying, like you're running all the games, you're going to get burnout. If you have one person doing everything and they disappear, then you could be out of luck. But yeah, it sounds like Facebook and Discord are some of the most prevalent options out there for people to use.
Moving over, being good stewards of your time, because we are tight on time, as always, and the band's about to play me down. The last section that we do in On Patrol is Scouting Report, and it's been awesome to do it with some kind of huge people in the hobby, and we look forward to kind of doing it with you guys. And the idea is you grab your binos, you're looking out your foxhole, and you're saying what's next on the hobby kind of community for you, and it's personal or big events in the club, game days, those things. So my hobby desk has a bunch of Gauls that have mocked me for the last 6 months to get done, and I've got some gunfighters for Dead Man's Hand. Just got done with a big event, 20 people for a 40K bolt action, bringing them over into historicals, and I really look forward to kind of doing some more pitch battles with my ancients, because Hail Caesar is a very good generic introduction rule set for ancients. I remember playing WRG and Armati with my dad and like frying my brain. And I love those games, but it's a good kind of funsies, big ancient armies game. And so I look forward to kind of hosting. A lot of people have asked for that demo here recently. So that's my scouting report. I will kick it over only because I know his Japanese are probably in his scouting report. Bruce, what is your scouting report?
You're muted, Bruce. You're still muted, Bruce. There you go.
There we go.
It's got me every time this time, but I got to paint these Japanese guys. Got 40 of those primed up. I've got 3 games ready to go for next weekend at the muster. April 25 and 26, the spring offensive in Burlington, North Carolina. We're getting geared up for that con, and so, yeah, that's what's on my radar.
Awesome. What do you got? Martin had to drop off because it was past his bedtime in good old ye England. Charlie, what do you have on your scouting report?
Okay, so going to start off with the club. So a goal for the club, one I've already mentioned, Historicon of the West. We want to grow Millennium Con now that we found a permanent home that is fantastic and we can grow into it. We want to grow that convention to where it's a marquee event for historicals. That's not going to be an Adepticon with everything, but we want to really grow it as a historical event. That's number one. The second thing for the club, right now we're very loose, organized across the state. Pretty organized here at the state level, but at the local level not. So what we want to do is start building chapters and getting organized chapters where they have elected members and organized game days, etc., and do that throughout Texas. And I mean, the sky's really the limit. Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, San Antonio, Austin. We do have one chapter that's organized, and it's really based on a personality of a person that is very organized. But that's called Heart of Texas Wargamers, and it's based in the Killeen, where Fort Cavazos, formerly Fort Hood, Temple and Waco area. So they're organized. They have a call it a chapter, and that for the club is where we want to go in the future is get organized like that. And then for me personally, going back to my childhood, I have always liked 1/72nd scale. Somebody mentioned Airfix.
That's where I started. Yeah.
So
OG.
20 millimeter, 1/72nd scale. I don't know if you guys have seen Battle Honors 3D.
Yeah.
They do produce all scales, but 20 millimeter, and I just recently picked some of those up in Napoleonics, and ultimately want to build my 5th scale of Napoleonics collection in 20 millimeters. So everybody thinks I'm crazy, but my ultimate goal for me personally is to build opposing armies using Valor and Fortitude. And if you haven't tried that rule system yet, it's a fantastic.
Heard a lot of great things. Yeah.
Very fun, easy. But build me 2, 3, 4 armies, and then go to conventions where I can actually play as opposed to running a convention. So
we've all said that, Charlie. We've all been like, I just want a platoon. I just want 5 armies is where I'll start. Why are you doing the Spanish? What's going on?
I will never do the Peninsula, so don't worry about that. I got all the scales in Napoleonics right now, and not one Peninsula Brit or Spaniard.
Good. Take that, Sharp.
That's my goal.
Yeah. Kevin, kicking it over to you. Scouting report.
Well, for the group, it's going to be our upcoming Civil War game day. Civil War in the West and the Trans-Mississippi. We held at the St. Charles County Heritage Museum this next Saturday. We'll have 4 games going on, 2 naval and 2 land. One is Wilson's Creek. We have Battle of Lucas Bend. We have Battle of Fort Donelson. And then we're one guy's doing Newton Station in 54 millimeter.
Awesome.
So that requires taking in some extra tables for him. Personally, I'm going to be working on a project that I've picked up from a local historical group here. Pirates of the Mississippi is what I've called it. They're apparently in North St. Louis County. Eons ago, there was 3 pirates that would prey on the keel boats going up and down the river. And this was Spanish territory at that point. And the other side was British territory, so they would go over and raid the British. The Spanish didn't care until they started raiding on their side. And so there was tales of buried treasure and in not too far from where I live, actually. Of course, nobody's ever found it. So but anyway, that's my personal thing. I'm going to.
That's awesome. That's cool. Awesome. A mud dog, Mississippi mud dog, Jack Sparrow. I could see a lot of fun with the game in that.
Yep.
So kicking it over to James with Track and Hole. What's on your scouting report?
Oh, for Track and Hole, I think probably a few more. My mind just like wow. I hate when words go out of your head.
Chain of command.
Tournaments, not tournaments. Campaigns. That seems to be working well for us. They're not huge campaigns, but smaller campaigns. It really seems to bring people out. So I think we'll have a few more campaigns in the near future for the club. Personally, myself, I'm working on doing a chain of command scenario for Lafayette Causeway. Was just awesome. There a while back myself personally, so lots of photographs, and now I'm 3D printing the buildings and working on the scenario. So that's sort of a personal goal, and of course I'm gearing up for NashCon coming up too.
You guys do a lot of good campaigns. I know you did like the Blucher one, and now you're doing the Invasion of Britain. So I look forward to those posts and looking at Scott Anderson's wonderful painting. I'll kick it over to Jason for your scouting report.
Sure, yeah. A couple years ago, I went to Storicon. They were pushing kind of more games in America. And we realized we play a lot of games that occur in Europe. We're not going to quit playing Colonials or quit playing World War II, but we're like, we could do some Mesoamerican stuff. We started doing Zorro, and we're going to do some games for the American Civil War in the Southwest that happened in Texas, New Mexico, Arizona.
That's awesome.
And then that's kind of our club. And then for me personally, I'm turning 50 next year. I'm like, I want to do something kind of childish. So we're going to do Assault on Cobra Island. See how much of a disaster we can make that. And
Destro, and what's it, Lady Cobra, whatever her name is?
Baroness.
Yeah. Baroness, that's it.
So we're going to do that. And then in that idea of what can our club do to put on a show to bring people in, we're going to try doing like a Battletech game back with the old, where they had the states drawn on the plates and they handed those out. And that's kind of going to be whatever plate you ate on is what table you're going to sit on and fight that fight.
Oh, that's cool.
We'll try some different stuff.
That's cool. Kicking it over to Rob of the H.A.W.K.s. What's your scouting report?
Okay, well, the H.A.W.K.s as a whole will be having Cold Barrage, our one-day version of our fall convention, on the 15th of February in Havre de Grace, Maryland. If this drops in time to get that. 2 weeks later, we'll be sending a contingent to Cold Wars, and we're organizing our Historicon offerings at this point. So personally,
play testing, a lot of that is what it sounds like.
We are.
Club days.
That has been occupying the club days. So personally, my next historical project that I'm supposed to be working on is my eccentric little 40 millimeter home cast Franco-Prussian War from vintage German Schneider molds from the 1920s and 30s. So I've accumulated enough of them that I can actually now do something with it.
Nice. I post pictures on the H.A.W.K.s. I'll be monitoring that. I want to see. That's got just a tinge of like I need to see how that appears, either in a great project like you're going to pull off, or if I was over that, a disaster. Shawn, I'll kick it over to you for your scouting report.
I got lots of things going on. Next, we're playing, as far as the club, we're playing the AWI through June, so we'll be kind of tied up with 28 millimeter American War of Independence, so that started. As far as what I'm doing here, Warlord has set up a logistical site here in Salt Lake City. I'm running it, and I will be in Genghis Khan in Denver in 2 weeks on the 22nd. We have a moving Warlord booth that we want to expand here in the West. So I'm really looking forward to that. Personally, I'm still working on, I'm way in over my head, my Bridge over River Kwai terrain table, 4x6 table. So I'll be posting that so you guys can keep track of it. But I think it's coming together. It'll be fun, and having the boys fight on a riverbed. They're probably not used to that particular ground, so it'll be fun. So that's kind of, I have lots of things going on.
I want that, mute him real quick, Rob. I want the Bridge over the River Kwai to be individually bamboo tied, or I'm going to post on your pictures. Like, that's not historically accurate. I'll post under a Phantom account, Shawn, so don't worry about it. But it'll be me. You'll know.
You know what? It took 31 hours to print each tower. So 64 hours of 3D printing. It's like it is bambooed.
I like how we're trying to plug groups and everything, and we're like, do this. It'll take 60 hours, and you'll have a bridge that you can play on a 6x6 table with. That's all she wrote. Really appreciate you guys again coming on, and wanted to kind of expose. Podcasts are huge in Europe, and we've got a decent following from Europe right now, and we've gotten a lot of questions about what it's like gaming in America, and again, connecting our tissue of America. I have robbed and stolen things from everybody on this podcast, on this panel, just because you guys have been doing successful things in your own right, and I hope we can grow and develop as a group and be cohesive. And then I'm always happy. You know me, I am the travel gamer. I will game no matter where you're at. I'll shoot you a message if I've seen you in passing or something. Say like, hey, man, you want to roll dice tonight? So I look forward to hopefully venturing in all of your neck of the woods here soon and getting a game in and cursing my dice. But truly appreciate the time and consideration you guys offered, and look forward to, being across the table from you here soon. I'll turn it over to Rob, and then I'll close this out here. But thanks again for your time.
Yeah. So my scouting report, if you follow my page at all, so I've been developing a war game for the Air Force. I somehow convinced them that it was a good idea to utilize wargaming like it started way back when. That's what's kind of set up behind me here, just doing some play testing. And this last week, it actually got sanctioned, blessed to be utilized for official training, which was a huge win for us. So I'm really excited about that. But it is taking the majority of my wargaming time now because it's
scale.
So I've designed it in 20 mil because 20 mil is what my modern collection was. But we kind of made the rules adaptable fairly easy from 20 to 28. And the model we're going for is we have a repository of 3D assets. So everyone can any units with access to the 3D printer, because they're all over the force now, can download it, set it up, and start training. But I'm PCSing in 4 months, so trying to make sure it's good to go here. I've actually got an event in March with a local RAF veteran outreach group that wants me to bring it out and do some play testing. And it's trying to bring veterans into the hobby space as a good way to cope with recent conflicts, PTSD and stuff. And then one of our senior enlisted leaders in my group got wind of it, and he's like, "Oh, I think this is awesome. Hey, in April, we're going to do some training. I need you to get 106 airmen done in a day." I was like, "Oh, okay. I'm going to need some volunteers, but I think we can do it." So it's really cool that I've been able to, get this done. But for myself, another little guilty pleasure, I do a little bit more fantasy and sci-fi than Matthew does. And I've got some spaceships because I've been working for about the last 5 years off and on a set of space rules that are loosely historical in the sense that they're based in Newtonian physics. But because I've had this experience writing a rule set, I'm like, I want to kind of work on this. And it's kind of something easy to paint because, I'm not worried about accuracy or anything. I just paint however I want. So it's kind of a good way to veg out and just paint something different. I like to mix it up. But I really appreciate you guys coming here and talking with us. I think it's great. I know my own experience. I wish I had access to something like this about 10 years ago when I tried to start my first wargaming club locally. I just didn't know what I was doing, but I wanted to do something, and it really struggled. And the information you all have shared with us today, that would have immensely helped me back then, trying to get something going. So hopefully one of our listeners is wanting to do something similar where they're at, and the information you guys have shared will help them in that journey. And just knowing that you guys are there and that there are these clubs and how supportive we all are in the hobby space, that they can reach out to you all for advice and feedback. I know you guys will be supportive in that way. So, Matthew, kick it back to you to sign us off.
No, the only thing I want to add is I can't wait for Elon Musk to government efficiency where you've gotten paid to play war games for your job. And I think the story, when he told me that, I was like applying my Army face paint, going to the field with my RE of trauma, and I'm like, oh, screw you, Rob, dude. This sucks. But no, I can't thank you guys enough. Again, we've said it. We're beating a dead horse. Truly appreciate it. Keep doing what you're doing. We look forward to that. And again, for the people, viewers and listeners who are listening to this podcast, reach out to them individually. You will not find a more approachable group of people, in this world than kind of war gamers who have a passion for it. They're not rolling in money. They're not doing it. They have a thing in their heart that makes it go pitter patter when they get involved with this and the history and the club building and making it. And they're all about it. They have showed you every barrier which they try to decode or overpass to get you into the hobby. And we just look forward to your kind of adventures with it if you're listening or viewing. And be sure to comment questions, even if you don't know where they're at. I will send you links to their sites, to their groups, to get involved and let you know what they're doing. So truly appreciate it. Thanks again, gentlemen, for all of your time. Giants in the hobby, and especially in Estados Unidos, North America. So with all that, we truly appreciate you guys following along. So grab your spear, your shield, your musket, or your belt-fed machine gun, and join us on the next episode of On Patrol. Out.